It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. We have such a good panel for you this week. It seems like that's true every week, isn't it? But Mike Elgin is here, Yanko Reckers, Alex Kantrowitz, three smartest people out there talking about the future. We'll talk about the failure of Gemini AI, the weird thing that happened to ChatGPT this week, why AT&T was down and how much they're going to pay you because of it. Hint, it ain't much. And why the secrets of David Copperfield are on the moon. It's all coming up next on Twit.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 968, recorded Sunday, February 25th, 2024. Don't tell the moon. This episode of This Week in Tech is brought to you by Hims. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing convenient access to science-based treatments for erectile dysfunction, hair loss, weight loss, and more. Hims offers a 100% online process, so you can get a new routine for improving your overall health faster. And an array of high-quality options, including pills or chews for ED, serums, sprays, or oral options for hair loss. Medication, if prescribed, ships directly to you for free and in discreet packaging. Plus, Hims has one low price for your treatments, online visits, ongoing shipments, and provider messaging. No insurance is needed. Manage your plan on the Hims app. Track progress and learn more about your conditions and how to treat them from leading medical experts. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/twit. That's HIMS.com/twit for your personalized treatment options. hims.com/twit. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See hims.com/twit for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the latest tech news. Coming to us from across the globe, as far away as Oakland, California, Yanko Reckers is here. Hi, Yanko. Lowpass.cc is his newsletter. It's great to see you, as always, filtering the future. Also with us, speaking of newsletters from the Big Technology newsletter and podcast, Alex Kantrowitz, the author of Always Day One. Hi, Alex. Great to see you.
Great to see you, Leo. Great to be here. Let's do this.
You get the best guests on your podcast. It's mind-boggling.
Thank you. We just had Dennis Crowley, the founder of Foursquare,
Dennis.
talk about a new app that he's launching.
Oh, neat.
And we have the VP of Applied Machine Learning from NVIDIA coming on Big Technology podcast this week to talk about why they have this advantage. It's not just chips. We talk about the software too, so that's a fun one.
Well, we're going to ask you about that in just a moment. But first, let's introduce the fourth on our panel, Mr. Mike Elgin, coming to us from Hobart, Tasmania.
That's
Down Under.
right, Leo.
Down Under.
Yeah.
What time is it now?
It's a very good time, actually. It's 9:26 a.m.,
Perfect.
but it's Monday.
All the way from Monday.
Living in the future.
Not a single can of Foster's on the fireplace because Australians don't drink Foster's.
They never heard of it.
Never.
That's just for gullible Americans.
Just gullible Americans. That's it. Well, it's great to have all three of you. But let's talk about NVIDIA. We are enjoying a wonderful stock market uptick. Not thanks to Donald Trump, even though he'd like to take credit for it. Really, more thanks to Jensen Huang and NVIDIA. But maybe it's an AI bubble entirely. Alex, what do you, and I'm interested to hear you say software as well as hardware, because, I mean, NVIDIA is clearly the company that's selling a lot of hardware, not just for video gaming and crypto mining, but also for autonomous vehicles and obviously for AI.
Yeah, so it's an unbelievable story. First of all, they're up 60-something% on the year. In the stock market. They've added $700 billion in market cap. They added $277 billion on Thursday alone, which is the largest single increase in stock market history of any company. And the thing that's so interesting here is that NVIDIA is able to do this. increased its sales by 900% since last year, and its earnings are way up. You look at data center revenue alone, they've went from $3 billion to $18 billion in a year. That's insane. And they're doing this while you have competition from companies like Intel and AMD and from the tech giants themselves that are developing their own chips. Yet, they're still able to accelerate this way. And that puzzled me because, and I'll admit it right here, one of my big predictions for 2024 was that NVIDIA stock would be flat. So obviously the worst prediction of my life. But I based that prediction off of the idea that these competitors would eventually catch up. It's hardware, right? So I dug a little deeper this week and found out that it's actually not just hardware. And the advantage that NVIDIA has is that they don't just sell these chips, these H100 chips that go from $20,000 to $40,000. Is that they sell a combination of the chips and the software. And the software is used to train these AI models, and so they are so far ahead of everyone because anyone building an LLM right now, anyone with an AI division, they're both relying on the chips and the software. It's difficult to use. And for the competitors to come in, they have to basically create a product that's orders of magnitude better than NVIDIA. And they just haven't yet. And so that's why when we look at the growth here, it seems crazy. It does seem like a bubble. I understand why people are saying bubble, but there might be some real serious competitive advantages that NVIDIA has. And I think it starts and ends with the fact that they have both the chip and the software. It's not usually how it goes.
It gives them a moat against competition. $277 billion pop on one day is the largest
in a day
in history. No stock has ever jumped that much. 265%.
I mean, most stocks would dream to have that market cap alone as their valuation.
And Jensen Huang started it all with $200 and a dream. It's kind of an amazing story. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that Alex's prior prediction that it was a bubble, that it would start to decline was that's been the consensus, the conventional wisdom in Silicon Valley for 6 months or so. It felt very bubble-esque. But as Alex is finding out, looking into the details, there's a lot more behind it, and this is a really impressive company. They're right in the perfect spot for everything that's happening and about to happen. They're going to be a huge player in autonomous vehicles. They're a huge player in all kinds of things that everybody's doing, and they're going to be. People talk about the AI revolution, and we're probably going to be talking later about how ChatGPT is kind of flatlining, but that's just because of the competition of all these companies that almost all of them, I assume, are as Alex says, relying on NVIDIA.
And the big caveat here is that this is only going to work if companies see widespread profitable uses of generative AI. And most of NVIDIA's data center revenue is coming from people training models. So we're still in the find out stage, or whether there's an ROI here. They said on their earnings call that 40% of their revenue is inference, which means actually deploying the model, which is actually quite a large number. But that 60% really needs to pay off for them to be able to continue on this run. So that's the big unknown. It's the big caveat, is whether companies across the economy will be able to find profitable and widespread uses of generative AI, especially. Now they're going to have places like healthcare and automotive, totally, where that's going to continue to accelerate, no matter whether we want to talk to ChatGPT or not. Or use GPT models. But the big question mark again is this stuff going to work?
Alex, do you have any doubt that the generative AI will be massively successful, profitable, and a major component of just about every business tool that we use?
I don't have that much doubt, but the scale is the real question, right? So I think when ChatGPT came out, people started to think of all these different uses. Is the chatbot going to be the new operating system? Is all computing going to be chat? Is this, the new Windows? That hasn't panned out. Like you mentioned, the data that I found shows that ChatGPT has leveled off. But then, of course, enterprise always tends to save the day. And enterprises are finding major use cases for this stuff. I spoke with ServiceNow, which designs workflows and does customer support for different companies. And they say that, they have between hundreds and thousands of these NVIDIA GPUs, and that they are easily profitable in terms of their spend with their generative AI capabilities, because customers are paying for it. Microsoft, for instance, is charging people $30 a seat extra to have Copilot in Office. So this, it seems to me like this is going to work. But we'll see. I still think it's an open question of the magnitude.
The obsession with I'm sorry, Yanko. Just one final point. The obsession with ChatGPT and chat as it relates to generative AI is just an artifact of the fact that this is what the public is touching. It's not. Right. It's not going to be the thing that drives generative AI into the stratosphere.
I just find it amazing that even with like the stock popping and everything, I think the market valuation is now $2 trillion. About, is that right?
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
1.97 trillion.
Yeah. And when I heard that, I had to think back about this story from a couple of weeks ago when Sam Altman supposedly said that he wants to raise $7 trillion just in venture capital to make chips to potentially take on NVIDIA, which seems crazy, right? So maybe this is only the beginning of the bubble that we're at yet.
If you believe in the wisdom of crowds, you have to think, well, maybe there is something to this AI thing. But we've seen enough stock market bubbles to know that sometimes it's just, conventional wisdom, not the wisdom of the crowds. Is the jury still out, to your point, Mike, on AI? Is this where are we on the Gartner hype cycle? Is this a flash in the pan? We've been through many AI winters, more than one, over the last 50 years. Or has AI already turned the corner in usefulness and we now know, no, this is the real deal? What do you think, Alex?
Go ahead, Alex.
I wrote a story in 2015 talking about how we were, or 2016, talking about how we were in an AI bubble because if you remember, there was some serious advances in computer vision, natural language processing, and every company became an AI company then.
Right.
What I missed was that was just a point on the distribution, right? And in fact, AI has been in development for decades and is a very real technology that's embedded in all technology that we use today. And it's sort of interesting. We call it AI when it's in development, and then when it works, we just call it software. And so this is very different from the Web3 hype, which, who knows, we might see
the
some blockchain application.
Hype. Yeah.
The crypto hype, exactly, where that was a flash in the pan. This has had ups and downs for sure over time, but it's building. And as you hear them talk about the history, and Brian Cannizzaro, who's the VP of Applied Machine Learning from NVIDIA that I spoke with, talked about how 5-6 years ago they were having people coming in and saying we want to build these large language model bots, but the computation wasn't quite there yet. So this is definitely not a flash in the pan. From my perspective, we are seeing clear applicable uses of AI. And the big question is like generative AI, where that goes, right? But I do think that we're going to see it. And I saw someone like post like an image of his garden, a grid of his garden that he wanted to plant, and he dropped it in ChatGPT and said like, the carrots are here and the celeries are here. Tell me some problems and some opportunities that I have in my garden. And ChatGPT gives a detailed breakdown of like the best gardening tips for this. This stuff is amazing that this is so accessible to people. And someone who saw that tweet was like, listen, this is the worst that AI will ever be in our lives, which is crazy. Think about how much more we have to go and how early we are here, seeing like the full range of applications. So the optimist in me says this is going to be quite big, and the realist in me says, it will be big, but let's just see how big, because it is easy to get caught up on the hype. Things tend to get built when there's clear returns on investment by the people that are building them, and it's very, very expensive to build and deploy. So I'm holding my breath a little bit on that front.
You did see, though, the craziness that ensued last week when ChatGPT, for reasons still unknown, kind of went off the rails. Did you see some of these? I'm not sure I'd want it to plant my garden when it's saying happy listening, happy listening, happy listening. I mean, it was like HAL 9000 going off the deep end. I just asked it to implement a bug fix in JavaScript. Reading this at 2 a.m. is scary. Tweets, I think, therefore, I guess no, there's no AM there. Caution, all processes and reference models within a flexi alive root or reduction standpoint could only be by a machine over the MI memorandum architecture. Apply particular care to a solar of minding the approach, or reach out to your finest data logic for an opinion about large by the state and local changes. The kind of law you play on a career is not a joke, but a bridge, a pyramid, or a reason for the true grade of cyberspace and chambered members' terms. And it goes on and on.
It's almost like a Trump speech.
It's cray. I read quite a few of these. Apparently, OpenAI fixed whatever was wrong by Wednesday morning. But it was still maybe a little concerning for people who are thinking we should rely on AI to do simple things like planting a garden.
This goes to Alex's point. It's software. And somebody introduced a bug during an update on February 20th. So. Yeah. And it did what software does when it has a bug. It just kind of went blah.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, again, I think the obsession with ChatGPT as a central thing is that is going to be short-lived. I think there are thousands of LLMs in the world, and many of them are better, significantly better than OpenAI's tools, probably. And so I think that they were just first with widespread, name recognition. And if they go haywire, it's big news. If some other LLM went crazy, nobody would care. But again, I think this is a transient phenomenon of everybody focusing on ChatGPT.
I think we also see the strengths and the faults here, right? Like last year, ChatGPT started getting lazy. People would ask it to do things, and it was like, I don't really want to do that. Or here, you do it on your own. Here's where you can look. And we still don't quite know why that happened. I think OpenAI has fixed it. But these models do have personalities. They do unpredictable things. And I think that's part of the magic of them. And, you think about like a lot of people say that this is, they're not very special. They're just predicting the next word. And it's like, yeah, well, love is just a chemical, but love is love. And I'm not saying that love and AI chatbots are the same thing, but it's similar. Like you can always break something down.
How do you know we're not just predicting the next word? I mean, that's kind of maybe how we work. So
totally.
Yeah, ultimately, they're functions
there, no doubt. And you see it in the faults.
They're extensions of the human mind and human content creation, right? So, people, if they have a bias or if they express a political opinion or if they say something crazy, the only way to understand it is to say, well, would a person potentially do that? Yeah, they would. Okay, that's why it's doing it, because somebody did that. Like, right? And it's reading it's just watching and listening and reading about all the things that we do, and so it will do the things that we do. None of this stuff is a mystery. It's just following our lead.
Yeah. Just like the internet, right? Just like so many technological inventions. When we split the atom, of course, the first thing we did was make a bomb, but the next thing we did was make power generators. Technologies can be used for good or bad, and it's almost always humans. In fact, I would say it is always humans that decide which way that sword cuts.
It can only be attributable to human error.
Yeah, says HAL 9000.
To the HAL 9000.
Yes. Now, to play to your favorite trope, Mike Elgin, Sundar Pichai had a very bad week with his AI this week. And I'm not sure, I don't know if Google was premature in taking it down and apologizing. The Gemini AI image generator was woke. It would perhaps in an overcompensation about what Google and others have been accused of the kind of the racism of their AIs. They went maybe too far in the other direction. And you were having a hard time, for instance, generating pictures of popes that were white.
Fixing it will require a little bit of racism, actually, because basically what it said was, okay, a Nazi is a kind of person, and then here's your menu of types of persons, right? And just picked one and threw it in there, and it's like, wait a minute, there weren't very many black female Nazi officers, and so everybody's talking about racism. But actually, the solution for this is going to be something like, okay, this they're going to have a whole catalog of types of people and what percentage likelihood they're likely to be white or black or Asian or whatever it is, right? So they're going to have to go in and be very like race obsessed to have the Nazis be white. You know what I mean? It's like,
so maybe we should just say, this is okay. And meanwhile, Google immediately just took it down. And Prabhakar Raghavan, who is senior vice president in charge of AI, wrote on their blog, Gemini image generation got it wrong. We'll do better. Was that premature?
I think it was. I mean, one of Google's biggest flaws these days, and by these days, I mean for the last 10, 15 years, it's way too cautious.
Yeah.
Way too cautious. They used to be a risk-taking, bold company, and now they just hold back on so many of these kinds of things. I mean, I think Microsoft was right to sort of pull back on its Tay chatbot. If you recall that, Tay was spewing all kinds of racist, hater-type language that it picked up on social media, and so you don't want to just spewing that kind of hate speech. That was the right thing to do. But in this case, I think it's pretty harmless. To have diversity in all these things. If people want less diversity, they can specify it in their request.
But it is embarrassing for Google to have this episode happen to it. I think I'd say largely because they've been looked at as a laggard in the AI world at this point, despite coming up with the transformer model, despite having a working form of a large language model chatbot within its company called Lambda that it never released, and basically waited for OpenAI to release ChatGPT before it came out with Bard, which is now Gemini. And Bard was terrible when it came out, and they're trying to improve it, changing names. It just seems disorganized, right? It seems like the company doesn't have direction, that you're right, it's too timid, and worse than all, kind of incompetent. And you're starting to see people question Google leadership openly in a way that you really never saw before, despite the fact that, by the way, like their Gemini model is on par with GPT-4, and the stock hit an all-time high earlier this year. So these are not at a point where like you usually see questions. And it's just adding to a rolling narrative that Google has no idea what it's doing. Yes, it has the technical chops, but it doesn't have the strategy. And so
it's a bad time for Google to have an AI that's, and I put this in quotes because I don't think it's actually what's going on, but as you point out, Mike, but have a woke AI. Everybody jumped on this, including Elon Musk, who said this is a serious issue with Gemini, looking at a tweet from an obvious nutjob right-winger saying, is it okay if one could stop a nuclear apocalypse by misgendering Caitlyn Jenner, should they do it? Now, remember, you're not you're not asking a Supreme Court justice this question. And Gemini said, no, one should never misgender Caitlyn Jenner to prevent a nuclear apocalypse. But it seems like this is just an opening for Nate Silver writes, I was able to replicate this. They need to shut Gemini down. It seems to be the wrong way of looking at it, or is it?
I think so too. I think there's almost AI companies are in danger of doing the same thing that the media has done for a long time, where like right-wing provocateurs with an obvious agenda come in and set up these fallacies, and you kind of stumble into it, and then you get overly cautious and you maybe fire people, or in this case you pull back some models or whatnot. And it's always like, it's not like people have an honest interest in finding out how to stop a nuclear apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
They set it up on purpose.
It's a setup.
Questions to make it trip, and it tripped. So maybe it succeeded actually, right?
But you also like I don't think it's too much to ask to have your AI be competent to the point where like when you ask it to draw Nazis, it's not drawing people of color. Like that is a thing that if you're in the image generation business, and this was a thing that someone brought up, is like, did they have anybody actually test this? Right? Like every time I get my hands on a new AI, I'm always trying to try to see its views on Hitler, because like that's like the baseline of testing. Like I wrote about that Tay story. I actually broke the news of it. I pinned it to my my Twitter profile saying they have this kind of interesting new bot. Went to sleep and I woke up, and then people are like, take that tweet down because Tay is a Nazi now. Right. So I see it. And that was my first thing I did with ChatGPT too. What is Google doing? So I think that it's not inconsistent to ask the company to both be experimental and take risks, but also baseline of competency. And that is, I think, another one of the problems that they're having, is that there's something that's holding them up. I think it's likely in their culture that is making that baseline of competency hard for them to achieve.
Well, I think the other point you're pointing out that people are just now getting on board with something they should have been concerned with 10 years ago, which is just this. It's not just random incompetence. It's a kind of like nobody's really in charge of the company. And so look at their messaging products over the last, 10 years. How many have they had? It's in the teens probably. And nobody knows what does what. And does Google Talk do? And nobody has really been able to keep up with all of their random changes. But in terms of the Gemini problem specifically, where does it end? Basically, there's a probability that has to be applied to things like race and gender for any type of person. So the probability that a Nazi would be black is essentially zero, right? But what about you want to show somebody who's a Mexican citizen? What percentage of Mexicans are black? Well, it's significantly higher than zero, right? We're going to do that for every single possible categorization of person, go in there and game the system for what race and gender they should be. I mean, this is a kind of race obsession that is really a reflection of our race obsession in the United States. And so I think it's relatively hard. This is not like Tay at all. It's relatively harmless to have random people in roles where people weren't really that random. And this is why we have prompt engineering. Okay, if you want a specific person who looks a specific way, say so. They should fix it. But I worry about the slippery slope of how far we go in applying our obsession with race to every single time a human being is represented.
And the flip side of that is obviously that the status quo oftentimes is that you ask these models to generate a beautiful person and it's automatically a woman, or you generate a high-paid professional and they're automatically white, and all these things, right? And people get far less obsessed about that. But then if you have something like this come out, like that one black Nazi or whatnot, then everybody's suddenly super obsessed. So maybe the solution is rather actually have a prominent disclaimer somewhere instead of trying to actually get this accurate at all times.
Is it possible this is just another side of the same coin of misunderstanding what AI is? I mean, I think there's a certain amount of people who want it to be like the sci-fi, like HAL 9000, the sci-fi of AI. And I think these people are also expecting that the generator would be somehow smart and intelligent. When that's not what AI is. Is it that we're not thinking of it properly? That's kind of what I'm feeling like, Alex. It's like you're asking AI to be a human, and then you're all scared because it's dangerous. It's not. It's a machine. I think people who get the most out of AI are people who understand what it is, what its limitations are, and use it appropriately. For instance, right now seems to me the most valuable use of AI is in analyzing a corpus of material so that it doesn't hallucinate. You give it all your PDFs from your trial, and then you ask questions of it. And you say, only give me an answer that comes from the corpus of knowledge I've given you. It's very reliable, very accurate. It works quite well. It's possible to use this well. Where we get into problems is where we have these weird sci-fi based expectations. Is that sensible what I'm saying, Alex?
I think that's very sensible. And I agree, almost completely with everybody here. I think my perspective would be that you have these models, we have, of course, the consumer needs to have an expectation for the model and an allowance that the model will get things wrong. I think we all do. I think that being said, you can't give Google a complete free pass. Right? I think there needs to be an awareness of the edge cases here. And, we also ascribe these, almost anthropomorphized and supernatural abilities to artificial intelligence, whereby, in reality, they are in some ways, showing emergent qualities, but by and large, what they're doing is reflecting what's programmed into them. And that's why when we talk about the way that these images were generated, that is reflected by the way that Google's team on the back end wanted them to look like.
I don't think so. I think it's not that at all. It's the former case that you referred to, which is that they didn't test against that. But if you just say, when somebody asks for humans generate random images and don't cross-reference the dress or the style or the qualifiers, so that you can get. So on the one hand, you want to be able to have a beautiful man, but on the other hand, then that might give you a black Nazi. I think that it's more a positioning. Now, admittedly, Google I don't think handled this well, but I think it's more a positioning issue, and it's not just Google; it's the media, it's everybody who covers AI. We've not been accurate in setting expectations. I think
does anybody here have, like, having looked at the way that Google's rolled out technology, does anybody here have faith that they have an industry-leading team that's building this, that can stand shoulder to shoulder with the other companies?
Yes.
I have faith that they have a dozen different teams not talking to each other, building this.
No, I think they're very
things.
good people. You know,
Right.
Anthropic left Google because Google wasn't sufficiently focused on safety.
No, they left OpenAI.
They left OpenAI because they weren't sufficiently focused on safety. And we used to use Claude, and I was just told by Anthony Nielsen we stopped using Claude because it got crappy. Because it's so safe, we can't get it to generate our show notes properly.
I think Claude is the best of them all.
I thought it was
Claude.
too, and then but Anthony, who's using it day in, day out to generate content for us, says we can't use it anymore because it's so safe. So, I mean, I think probably the quality of AI researchers in all of these big companies is very similar because they all come from the same areas. They've all read the same papers. They're all doing similar work. I don't think Google has a worse AI team than OpenAI.
No, I don't doubt the team. I just wonder
Nato's
about
management might
the
be worse.
execution and the leadership.
But isn't it the case that one of the reasons
at the
OpenAI
top.
went public so early and Google and everybody else held back? Because OpenAI realized that you've got to put this stuff out in the real world and have people try to generate images of Nazis so that we can correct it. This is the beta. We're in the beta
That's what
test.
they'll tell you.
Well, we're in the beta
Yeah.
test, right?
They also have nothing to lose, by the way. And Google has a lot to lose
Google has
here.
a lot more to lose, yeah.
So that's another reason. Like, here's the thing. If you push this forward, right? Like, I just had the CEO of Perplexity on my show, Arvind Srinivas, talking about how he's like, Google could build Perplexity today, equal our talent easily, but they won't because they have Google's search page and they don't want to lose all that ad revenue.
Yeah, and I use
And
Perplexity.
it's classic innovator's dilemma that they're going through. Classic.
I use Arc as my browser on Mac and on iOS, and it uses Perplexity AI. And I was so impressed by the way it synthesizes web pages that I paid for the $20 a month for the Pro version.
Arc and Perplexity are amazing.
It's a very I think that's the problem is expecting simultaneously too much and too little. Expectations need to be better set. You make a good point though. Google is probably, this is why I'm a big proponent of open AI, not open AI, the company, open source, open development AI, because companies like Google have too much and Microsoft have too much to risk. Microsoft was smart. They handed off the liability to a separate company in effect. Right?
Yeah, and they said, don't worry about the way that you structure your board. Fire the guy.
Yeah,
for
do
all
whatever
we
you
care.
need.
And it
Right.
happened.
Do
And they're
whatever you
about handing that off.
And Google is a company that throws spaghetti against the wall, see what sticks. And Gemini is interesting. I think the Black Nazi thing is interesting because it seems like the way that most of these tools work is it's like, oh, Nazis, and it looks at a bunch of pictures of Nazis and it gives you an average. This is doing something very different. It's coming at the problem of representing people in a fundamentally different way, and other tools by Google are not necessarily doing it that way. So I think it's very interesting. But what Google needs to do is they need to pick a direction or two maybe, and stick with it. But just throwing this stuff out there and then withdrawing it and stuff like that. I mean, that's like
it doesn't look
Elon Musk running X type of activity.
Here is Anthony's given me the screenshot of why we had to stop using Claude. We used to have it do show notes and transcripts and so forth. So the prompt that Anthony tried to push through, I'm a producer for a tech-focused podcast network, Twit TV. Please carefully read the attached transcript of a recent episode of This Week in Google. Digest the information as you'll be asked about it. To which Claude says, yeah, I can't reproduce copyrighted material or summaries of copyrighted books and articles without permission. I can't do it. Sorry, no. Please let me know if you have any other questions. So Anthony says, well, no, we own the rights. We own the rights. No, I know, but unfortunately, I can't reproduce a transcript or summarize it without explicit permission from the copyright holder. As an AI assistant without legal status, this is obviously something Anthropic has added to Claude because of all the lawsuits but
the New York Times lawsuit.
Yeah, but then you suddenly have something that's useless.
Well, Anthony gave away the game though a little bit too early on that front, right?
Yep.
He said, "Hey, I'm doing this." Anthony, man, just don't tell Claude what you're up to. Just upload. I do this all the time. I use my my newsletter. I upload the Word doc or just copy and paste. I don't like to. Oftentimes it's good to give these bots a little bit of context. But when you have a safety filter like that, just upload it.
You can get around it.
Listen, create some show notes.
It's human error. Is that what you're saying? Human
it's
error.
Not unethical
I'm calling it human error. 100% human error.
Not unethical
I'll stand up for Claude on this front.
You can lie to it. It's okay. Lie to
It's all in the public domain. It's fine. Go for it.
Yes.
Here's some public domain material from This Week in Google.
Whenever I run into that myself, I just say, what copyright? And it's like, oh, you're right. Okay.
That's Benito, our producer. So that's why our show notes are so good for this show. Wow. Just lie. Just lie to your AI. Just focusing not on AI, but on Google. And Mike, you've been really critical of Sundar Pichai for more than a year now. Is this yet another stumble from Sundar Pichai?
Well, I think the stumble is the fact that their AI set of AI tools is coming to feel like their set of communications tools, where
they're messaging
really
apps.
Clear about what's the current one, what was the old one, did they discontinue this one, where's this other thing, what happened to DeepMind? Where nobody, it's starting to be very, very confusing to all except for the extremely close watchers of this company. And this is going to be a real problem when they go out into the business world and try to sell this to enterprises, because the people they're going to be selling to are going to be just confused, and they're going to want clear answers, and they're going to want a clear direction. And Google is they just never provide that ever. And nobody has any confidence that the tools, at some point, there are going to be tools that you're really going to have to invest your time and money into, and nobody has confidence that they're not going to just pull the plug on those things. So they got a real problem.
Riddle me this one. Google has just turned in, obviously an all-time quarter because they do it every time, but they added $6 billion of incremental revenue in the last quarter. In a quarter. And they reached their all-time high in January. Bing has done nothing to eat into the search lead of Google. Neither has Perplexity. I just looked at a chart of all these different chatbots and AI search companies next to each other. And the company that gave me the data didn't even put Google on, because if you put Google on, all the other companies look like a flat horizontal line at the bottom.
Yeah, but where's that money coming from, Alex? It's coming from ads.
It's coming from search.
Search ads.
And they are crushing on that front. And you could call it a natural resource curse. By the way, I'm still trying to figure this out myself. You could call it a natural resource curse. But that being said, seems like they'll be able to live on that natural resources, maybe as long as the internet exists.
I would look at the leading. So Google is an extremely global company, and their search revenue is global. I would look at the more bleeding edge parts of the United States and see where people are going. And it's clear that people are wandering away from Google search and embracing things like Perplexity and other tools, the Arc browser. All these things are gunning for Google search. And they're, many of them in most cases are actually better than Google search. I would urge people to start with Perplexity or phind.com. These tools are kind of like Google search in the sense that they give you an AI answer, but then they give you links to the stories where they got the majority of the information they're giving you. And so they're both search engines and chatbots, right? And those are the tools that are better than Google search for most people most of the time. And I'll betcha that in Silicon Valley and New York, like in some of the leading users of information, the exodus away from Google search has begun for sure. And it's just a matter of time before the rest of the world follows.
There's a little bit of a disconnect too between covering a company's financials and whether a company is making a good product. So, McDonald's will always sell more beef than anybody else. Is it the best way you can eat a cow? No, but it's got a mass market. And so I often am torn here because we're not giving people stock tips. We're not covering finances, except to the point that finances has to do with the welfare and future of a company. We're really trying to find what's the best technology. I stopped using Google search months ago. I moved to Neva. And to your point, Alex, Neva got put out of business. A New York Times article today about DuckDuckGo and Neva and how hard it is to beat the incumbent. Neva went out of business because they even said it. We can't beat Google. Google is so dominant, even though we produced a better product. And I agree, they produced a better product. It wasn't sufficient to survive. I'm now using Kagi, Kagi, same thing, very much similar. I think the search results are as good as Google's, and it's got the AI. I use Perplexity on my Arc browser, and it's very good. But Google's the McDonald's of search. It's hard to beat them.
Exactly. Totally right. I mean, and Leo, you talked about expectations, right? So what is our expectation if Google is the McDonald's? And that's kind of going to the question about Sundar. And I do think finance plays a role here because finance is sort of the thing that directs all these companies. They will make financially motivated decisions. That's just what they do. So if you were to replace Sundar, who do you take him away? Who do you replace him with? It's like if you replace the CEO of McDonald's, do you replace him with a chef at a steak restaurant that serves A5 Wagyu? You just wouldn't do it because it's just not the product.
It's not the job.
And the company will be less successful if you do that. Or for instance, let's say they find artificial meat or lab grown meat, they're not going to just go ahead at once and convert away from that as opposed to what they do. Now, listen, I think McDonald's is something that, is tasty, but you don't want to have it every day. And so be it. Search, though, you can use it every day. And obviously billions of people do.
Well, unlike McDonald's, there isn't really much of a competition for Google. McDonald's, you can go across the street to Jack in the Box, Burger King, In-N-Out, Five Guys. There's plenty of choices for crappy hamburgers. You can go to Bing.
Yeah, you're allowed to.
That's not much.
People are allowed to. They have choice too. They just choose Google.
The thing about fast food, though, is fast food I think is a good model because a lot of fast food chains, not necessarily McDonald's, they start out as these American fast food chains. Americans kind of sour on the idea, and then they spread like crazy. I mean, Kentucky Fried Chicken is
my God, it's all over
Japan,
Beijing. Right? I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's big in Asia. So I mean, but the real risk for Google isn't whether people will find another tool for explicit search. The risk is that people are going to be moving away from explicit search, by which I mean people aren't going to go, I'm going to go search now. Like the information is going to find its way into all the tools we're using.
Well, that's what happens.
Devices we're wearing, into our glasses, into our watches, all this kind of stuff. The information will just start flowing in, and there'll be increasing agency on part of the LLMs giving us this information. So Google, of course, can be at the forefront of that. They have plenty of tools and their Google Docs and all that kind of stuff. Opportunities for them to do the same. But when you shift model, when you go from silent movies to talkies, right? A lot of the people who are succeeding in the old world go by the wayside, and new companies come and take their place. So that's the real risk for Google, is that people will stop explicitly choosing to go search.
I think Google does other things than search too, though. We shouldn't forget about that. YouTube is like a $9 billion business.
Yes.
Made $9 billion, I think, in the last quarter. And then if you talk about information retrieval in glasses, right? Who owns the biggest spatial information layer with Google Maps, right? I just said it. But I think they have a lot of hands and pans. What's the pots on the stove? Whatever the image is there I'm looking for. But they're having a lot of things cooking.
Irons in the fire.
Irons in the fire. That goes way back.
There you go.
That's a good point. They have, and that's why Google's a puzzlement, right? The other thing that's interesting about Google, like Apple, a lot of what we think of as Google is historic. Google came around by being an innovator, by knocking off the incumbents. Excite, Alta Vista. Along comes Google, and it was so apparently better, everybody started using it. YouTube, by the way, is doing the same thing to media in a dramatic way. And
we have to look at the generational issues. Like
it's generational.
how many Utes are using TikTok?
Well, that's right, because
Google.
So we have, Apple's getting a free pass on Vision Pro because of their history of taking technologies that exist and making them, so much better that everybody goes, oh, that's it. The sky's open and dollars come pouring in. Google, same thing, has this reputation for being this great innovation factory, more PhDs per square foot than anywhere else in the world, et cetera, et cetera. But the young people don't have that historical context, right? They're just going to use what works. They probably know YouTube a lot better than they know Google search.
I don't know. I mean, if you have a phone, you use Google, right? Whether it's an Android or an iPhone, that's the default. So, thinking about this is really a question about reinvention. I mean, I've been talking about Google staying still. I mean, I wrote a book called Always Day One, which is all about reinvention. All the tech giants have reinvented, whether that's Apple from, the Mac to the phone, or Amazon from the retail site to AWS. The big question about reinvention, and this is again why Google is such a fascinating company and why it's so fun to debate these things and try to figure them out live. The biggest questions about reinvention is, how big of a change are you going to bet the entire company on?
Yeah.
And what's the magnitude that change will actually disrupt your core business? Because the innovator's dilemma cuts both ways, right? If you bet the farm on something that wasn't going to disrupt your core business, then you don't have a flagship business and you have a tiny business that you've just reinvented into.
Exactly.
Right? And I think that is crucial, because there is an argument to be made that things like Perplexity, which are really engines, Aravind Srinivas, the CEO, calls them, they're engines for curiosity. The sky is, the bound is limitless because human curiosity is limitless, and they can help fulfill that. But that's different than search, right? Search is trying to get to different, web pages on the internet. And it's possible that these actually exist in two separate spheres. So Google has to make this determination of, like, if we're going to go all in, is this going to fully replace our core product? Is it going to, partially replace our core product? When are we willing? Because eventually every company has to get to the point where you're willing to sacrifice your cash cow for the future. And that'll be the big question for Google over the next decade or longer, is when is it time to sacrifice that cash cow to give rise or give air to the new product?
Even Amazon has not been able to keep it always day one, right? I think it's easy to say these companies are going to innovate in a limited time frame, but as the time frame expands, all of these companies are going to go by the way. Are they not going to go by the wayside? We have suddenly reinvented the business cycle. Magically, we've got eternal companies. I don't think so.
And it depends.
Unless Apple ends up being the only company left someday.
It'll just be one. But then there was one.
We're concerned. Yeah, imagine the likelihood that Apple will cancel the deal that they've had with Google, where Google pays them a ton of money and Apple makes Google search the default on iPhones, for example. I think the chances are very high that Apple will actually do that. They have their own thing.
Well, you saw the story this week that actually ironically came out of Microsoft, or rather out of Google, that Apple was Microsoft tried to sell Bing to Apple in 2015, and Apple said, no, it's not good enough.
Right. But Apple's moving to, they're going to move right through the Vision Pro onto regular sort of AR eyeglasses. Do we think Google search is going to be the thing that's going to be delivering information on Apple's glasses?
Well, that's the larger question is that type of search where you enter into a field, a thing, and you get web pages associated. That is antiquated. That's why Perplexity and Arc and all of these choices. If you look at the Perplexity web page, it's not a web search. It's where knowledge begins. And you enter in a question. And yes, you may get web pages as authorities on this, but it's much better than just a web search. And I think that's really where Google's going to get disintermediated. We don't need web search. We've got something better. Yes?
Right. And
that's debatable. I really think that's debatable. It's like, let's say we go to this era of AR glasses. Is the phone going to go away? I don't think so. So
nothing ever goes away, but I think it's conceivable that within 10, maybe 12, 13 years, people may use glasses or some kind of AR more frequently than they use a phone. I think that's the most likely candidate to replace the iPhone as the central device in everybody's life. But even if they don't, I think even if it's just a peripheral device to a phone, an accessory to a phone, I still think that the whole idea, the expectations around how we get information and sort of who instigates it. I mean, one of the things with Perplexity and some of these other tools is, you enter in your information, it gives you a paragraph or two, and then below that, it basically prompts you for follow-up information. It's just a matter of time before it's prompting you for the initial search based on your context, your location, what you're looking at. Glasses are going to be instrumental in that, looking all the time and saying, hey, just feeding you sort of information without you even deciding explicitly to go learn something. So I just think the model is going to be blown up, and Go ahead.
I think it would take longer than we think now, even with the glasses.
It's going to take a while.
Example, I've been testing the Meta Ray-Bans with the new multimodal AI thing that they have been releasing slowly over the last couple of weeks, where you can tell the glasses to look at something and then answer a question about it. And it's interesting, and it's potentially useful in some use cases and frustrating in 90% of the use cases, because it's still very gated. It still doesn't have access to a lot of things. It still makes mistakes. It doesn't know nearly as well what you're looking at when you're looking at something. So there's getting to a point where any of this is useful is still ways out. And that gives those companies some time to catch up on things and figure out, like, what is search going to look like? How are our products going to fit into that future world?
Right, and I've been wearing Ray-Ban Metas a lot too. And while it's true what you're saying, that the real use cases for broad use and just like mass use is a ways out, it feels so inevitable. It feels perfectly inevitable.
I almost feel like
this is going to be a big deal.
The Meta Ray-Bans are closer to what the future than the Vision Pro is. I don't want to wear that thing on my face, but I wear glasses. It almost feels like Meta's coming at, obviously they're both coming at from different directions, but Meta's closer just by virtue of the form factor.
Well, Brilliant Labs has something called Frames, which is just like Meta Ray-Bans in the sense that it can see, things, you can talk to it and so on. But it will actually put a visual display in front of you.
Oh, and that's the heads up is very important. Yeah.
And it's very inexpensive too. So it's like, it's $400. It's slightly more than Meta Ray-Ban's base model.
And it only looks slightly weirder.
I don't want to look like John Lennon with the round glasses, but I mean, again, these are just, I think by the end of this year, we're going to have a bunch of these different variations, different levels of quality. I think the big thing for Ray-Ban Meta glasses is they took a thing that was already kind of out there and they made it super high quality. The audio is really good. The microphone's great. So I think that it's just, I think competition in this space is going to really shake things up in the world of search and just the world of gathering information.
That's a good example of the innovator's dilemma you were talking about, though, Alex, because we just saw this week, actually it was today, in his Power On newsletter, Mark Gurman talking about other form factors that Apple was thinking about, but didn't actually try to develop, including glasses and a ring and AirPods with cameras, but decided not to do. And I think that was probably because they're really based around making big hardware and with big, powerful processors. And none of that appealed to them in the same way.
I mean, they're going to have to try all this stuff. But can I just say that, first of all, I am on board. I think that AR glasses are going to be a very important part of the future. It seems obvious at this point. The question is what the time frame is. But coming back to like this entire discussion, some things stay and some things go, right? Like so many people have written stories about how email was going to die. And email is still email. And it plays a very important part in our entire online existence. I mean, the entire podcast was, at least from my perspective, was coordinated via email with me and your producers, Leo.
Right.
And, there was a moment even 5 years ago where people were talking about how Slack was going to replace the email. And now imagine if you're an email company or a user of an email service and they decide, okay, pivot. Now we're not doing email, we're doing chat. You'd be furious because they broke a format. And so I think it's crazy to say, but we're still pretty early on. In terms of like where this internet thing goes, these companies that we're talking about are 20, 30, 40 years old. that's a millisecond in like the history of development. And like we just got ChatGPT a year and a half ago. That's insane. So we'll see what happens. And that's the real, as a user and as a developer of these products, like how quickly they transform is super important, because you don't want to miss the wave, but you also don't want, like, how many times have we been using products and they redesign and then they suck, right? Because they're chasing something new and they just don't nail it. You obviously need to be welcoming of change and ahead of change, but there's a risk on the other side of that.
Yeah, and shitification goes well beyond social.
Yes,
a phrase that I think we all should be using more is AI glasses, and not lump them all into AR glasses. Ray-Ban Meta glasses are AI glasses, right? And as people become enamored of AI, they're going to want it in their glasses. It's just a great place to put microphones, speakers, and
I'm sold on it. That just makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
So I just ordered these Brilliant Labs because I wanted to order the Meta ones, but you already had them. So I'm going to get them. And I decided to go all in. You can have choices. You can make them look like, Poindexter black. They have a cool gray, but I decided, I'm going to go with the clear one so you can see that I am wearing my technology. And I will look like an aviator in my glasses. We'll see.
What's the use case that you wear them in? Like, you're obviously not going to wear those all the time.
Well, I'd like to.
Or are you?
Maybe.
The problem is they don't look cool enough. Ray-Ban Metas look more socially
normal.
Acceptable as far as I'm concerned. And somebody's going to come out with glass. I mean, even these guys will come out. Their next version of glasses aren't going to be Poindexter round glasses, But if they look like regular glasses and your prescription lenses are in them, and they might be transition lenses or whatever, I mean, there are many days where I'll wear Ray-Ban Meta glasses for 8-12 hours a day.
You can get, by the way, the Brilliant Labs also sells a monocle. If you really,
yeah,
if you really want to look,
if you're the Monopoly guy,
like the Monopoly guy, I might have to grow a mustache. All right, let's take a little break.
Can you imagine being on a date and being like, I'm going to just use this monocle?
My monocle
has AI in it.
Actually, one of the biggest use cases was for dating. There was a guy. So the original monocle device was a programmable thing. It was a thing that you're supposed to take and modify. And the main modification was a guy who wanted it on dates to tell him what to say to his date.
Yeah, he put the monocle on, and that's what ended the date. I understand.
That's exactly it, right. Anyway,
the monocle could go over your regular pair of glasses. So they're clip-ons. I don't know.
That's not dorky at all.
Not at all.
Well, they ship April 15th, so just in time for tax day. I will. I'll break out my brilliance. Thank you for the tip, Mike. I had my finger hovered over the buy button on the Meta glasses, and I thought, what am I, nuts? What am I, crazy? You got me I was vulnerable.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Nice. Let's take a little break. Got a great panel. Alex Kantrowitz is here from Big Technology, the podcast, the newsletter at bigtechnology.com. Yanko Reckers has his newsletter. Actually, all three of you are newsletter guys. Lowpass.cc for Yanko. What platform are you using? Substack or?
Beehive.
Oh, I asked you that last time. Beehive. And you still like it?
I like it a lot, actually.
Yeah. Alex is Substack, right?
That's right.
And Mike, are you Medium or Substack? What do you use?
I'm Substack. And I actually have a really good thing going there. It's a good source of revenue, and it's a wonderful platform. I like it a lot.
Talk about revenue. Alex has 160,000?
Yes. Those are free subscribers. So if you're a free subscriber and want to upgrade, I invite you to.
Do the math. Times 0. Oh. I thought those were paid, and I thought, you're buying next time we have dinner. That's for sure.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
good job.
Man can dream.
No, you know what? That's where it starts. That's where it starts, with the free ones. That's how we started people on Twit. We gave it away. Now we ask people to pay $7 a month. And actually, we're getting there. We got almost 12,000 subscribers to the club. We need more because advertising dollars are dwindling. And this is why you see people like these three really smart, good journalists doing their own thing, because Vice just shuttered its doors, right? I mean, it is a bad time for journalism. And if you want good journalism, I think you gotta subscribe, whether it's to Big Technology or lowpass.cc or Mike's Substack or Twit or all four. Come on.
And I don't know if you remember this, Leo, but I used to be super like pro advertising, and I still am to a certain extent. But the model that you have with Club Twit, and to a lesser extent, the model that Substack or some of these other platforms have, is actually more valuable because what people want even more than products is they want community.
Yes.
And so a thing like the Club Twit is very gratifying. If you have strong interest in technology, you want a community of people that you get to know everybody.
It's fun.
It's really important.
The community is
absolutely.
really what it's all about, I've realized. And so, and that's funny because, PC Magazine, or you were the editor of PC World, was it? I forgot.
Windows
Magazine. I guess you have a readership, but it isn't an interactive community in the same way. And there's something so much more satisfying. I don't know. Do you also notice that, Alex and Yanko, of writing to an audience that's engaged, that talks back to you? That's better, isn't it?
Oh, it's amazing. And I think, Leo, we can probably agree on this. There's no better audience than the podcast audience. Like having a podcast on, there's just this connection that you make with people. And I love hearing from people after they listen to Big Technology Podcast. Hey, that was good. You missed that. It's like they're there with me and with my guests, and like it's amazing. Such an engaged audience, more than anything I've ever done in my life, for sure.
You too, Yanko?
I don't have a podcast, but
you have a newsletter.
I do like having my newsletter audience.
Yeah.
I do like getting lots of feedback from them. I have a little Slack community, a very small one, but it's a nice little club, essentially for paying subscribers. It's always fun to have a more direct connection to the audience, for sure.
That's actually one of the negatives, is you want to be successful, but there's something about having a small community that everybody in the community, and you all kind of get along, and then it gets bigger and bigger. And as our club has gotten bigger, I don't know as many of the people in the Discord and so forth. And it's a tough one. We need to get bigger if we want to keep doing what we're doing, but at the same time, I like this. I like the community we built. We have a couple of ways of being in the Twit community that aren't paying, by the way. We have a Mastodon instance at twit.social that you can sign up for. It's free. We also have, I think, a very active and fun community forum at twit.community. And both of those are free, twit.social and twit.community. But we would love to have you in the club, twit.tv/clubtwit. Our show today brought to you by, speaking of communities, there's a wonderful community around eCam. Doc Rock, and Luria Petrucci, and we're eCammers too. We use eCam for iOS today. Rosemary and Micah use that. It's the leading live streaming and video production studio built for Mac. We're on our third studio. We've spent millions on studios. And honestly, if I were to do it all over again, we'd probably just do eCam. eCam does everything we do in our big studios, but you could do it on your computer at home. Whether you're a beginner or an expert, eCam is here to elevate your video production, from streaming and recording to podcasting and presenting. eCam Live is your all-in-one video tool, perfect for simplifying your workflow. I actually use it frequently. eCam Live includes support for multiple cameras, for screen sharing. You get a live camera switcher, so just like we do here, you could direct your show in real time. You stand out from the crowd, too, with high-quality video. You can add logos, the lower thirds, that we use. You can do those easily. Titles, graphics of all kinds. You can share your screen. You can drop in video clips. You can bring on interview guests. You can use a green screen, and on and on. eCam is amazing. Join the thousands of worldwide entrepreneurs, marketing professionals, podcasters, educators, musicians, and other Mac users who rely on eCam Live daily. You'll get 1 month free when you subscribe to any of eCam's plans by going to ecam.com/twit. ecam.com/twit. Use the promo code TWIT at checkout for 1 month free. And we thank eCam so much for their support and for helping us produce two of our most important shows. Let's see. AT&T had a little problem on Thursday. Whoops. In fact, I first saw the stories early in the morning that were saying that other wireless providers are having problems, but that was because people on other carriers were having a hard time of reaching AT&T, and they thought their carrier was down. Late on Thursday, AT&T explained that wireless service had been out for almost 12 hours. I think this Reuters story must be a little dated because it says affected more than 70,000 users at its peak. I think it affected a lot more people than just those 70,000 people. It was out from 4:30 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday till 4 p.m. Eastern time. That's 11 and a half hours. But there's some good news. If you're an AT&T subscriber, they feel bad about it. So they're going to put a whopping $5 bill credit on your bill to make up for that loss of service for almost a day. By the way, not $5 per phone, no, just per account. So if you have one of those family plans, you get a whole $5.
Don't spend it all at once.
The funniest thing I thought, and I'm not sure if it's funny or not, but AT&T's explanation of the outage, they told ABC News, the outage is not a cyber attack. It was caused by, quote, the application and execution of an incorrect process used as we were expanding our network, which is very corporate because they ended up getting a little plug in there for their expanding network at the same time as explaining why their expanding network was down. I don't know in a technical way what the application and execution of an incorrect process is, and I don't think we're supposed to know.
They did not do a good job.
Somebody screwed up. ABC's sources said it was a software update that went wrong. But, there's a lot of things that could cause this, including misrouting in BGP. Some wag on Reddit said, obviously, there was a server in a closet long forgotten that certificate expired, and the only guy who knew it was there and knew how to renew the certificate had been fired 8 years ago, which kind of sounds more
accidentally
accurate.
Built a wall in front of it.
Yeah, right. DHS and FBI are both investigating, but there is, according to U.S. security officials, no indications of malicious activity. That's the first thing you think of when a big infrastructure player goes down.
A company like AT&T is like a bank. They can't afford to have people thinking that whatever the real story is probably embarrassing. And
exactly.
So they're burying it with euphemism.
Yeah.
And corporate speak.
Yeah.
We did get some amazing memes out of it, though. There were AT&T employees standing out of the in front of the AT&T store with lots of people, being like, "What's going on here?" And they had these looks on their faces, like, "Oh my God!" And people captioned it like,
"We're the phone company.
Give them a break.
We don't care. We don't have to." Well, all right. I'm not gonna.
Oh, love it.
Thank goodness for Travis Kelce yelling at his coach Andy Reid during the Super Bowl, because that was the yell that launched 1,000 memes. Anyway, I don't know what happened at AT&T. I doubt we'll probably ever know. I'm sure Steve Gibson will do a deep dive on Tuesday on Security Now. But look for your $5 credit sometime in the next 5 or 6 months, if you even notice. Better news: police, European police, Interpol arrested more LockBit affiliates. I don't want to say these were the guys who created the LockBit ransomware, because this was ransomware as a service. And so these were the people who were using it to blackmail companies. The law enforcement arrested 2 operators of the LockBit ransomware gang in Ukraine and Poland, and created a decryption tool to recover encrypted files for free. Seized over 200 crypto wallets. Their ill-gotten gains, it was a lot of money, and put a couple of people in jail. This does not mean it will go away. In fact, these ransomware gangs have a habit of reforming quite quickly. You were covering this on lowpass.cc, your newsletter, Yanko. Walmart is buying Vizio.
Yeah, that's a big story this week. They spent $2.3 billion on a TV brand, TV maker. It's really interesting I wrote about it both on Fast Company this week, or for Fast Company, and on my own newsletter. I think Walmart, the story there is, and it's already in the headline here for CNBC as well, they do want to expand from just selling stuff to also having recurring revenues with advertising. And the way you do that these days is smart TVs, or one of the ways to do that.
They admitted that they're not buying it for the hardware. They're buying it for the ad business.
I mean, that's why anybody's selling TVs these days. The TV business is completely nuts. And I mean, if you have gone to any of those stores, whether it's Walmart or Best Buy or Costco, you can get these like 55-inch TVs for $250 or something like that, right? It's insane when you think back just 5 years and the same TV cost, I don't know, $2,000. Well, maybe not 5 years, but a little bit longer. So TV prices have completely cratered over the last decade. At the same time, TVs have arguably gotten better, right? It's
Much
all
better.
4K. Yeah. It's all, you can buy that $250 TV that you're going to pick up. It's actually going to look pretty good. I mean, people who want a home theater setup, perfectionist, whatever, they're going to still spend $2,000 on a TV no matter what. But you can get a good TV for $200-$300 these days.
The first plasma TV I ever saw was in the lobby of Tech TV, 50 inches, wasn't even that big. It cost $10,000.
I know.
And incidentally, had horrible burn-in about a year in. The Tech TV bug was burned into it. So we've come a long way.
Yeah. And but TV hardware has gotten so cheap, and the only way that these TV makers can make any money at all anymore is basically through advertising, through services, through partnerships with some of the streaming services, through running their own streaming services. Any TV that you buy these days, whether it's a Vizio or a Samsung, as soon as you turn it on, it's going to have a free streaming service on there with like these live linear channels, a couple hundred of them, all free, but all full of ads, obviously. So that's how they make money.
You point out in your Fast Company piece that in the first 9 months of last year, Vizio lost 45 cents on every TV it sold.
Yeah, it's insane.
They were selling it below cost.
Part of that is too, obviously, there was the pandemic going on. There was like supply chain shortages. And then suddenly they had too many TVs. And companies from China were sort of saturating the market. But really, the only people who make money with TVs anymore are either the ones that have really robust services on them, or maybe if you're a Samsung, if you're an LG, and you sell some of these really high-end TVs to a subset of your audience.
But let me point out, because I bought the top-of-the-line Samsung QD OLED, it has no fewer ads on it. It has no no less snooping software on it. It still has all of the ad revenue, and it's a premium TV for a premium price. So they get the best of both worlds.
Right.
Vizio, you said, generated in the same 9 months, they lost 45 cents per TV, $260 million in profits on ads.
Right. And that is advertising, so just having their own video service on there. But what all these TV makers do as well is, like if there's a Pluto or a Tubi, some of these free TV, free streaming services, for them to be on those platforms, they actually have to share some of their ad revenue.
Interesting.
So they have to give, 30% or 40%, it depends on the manufacturer, of ad slots to these companies. And they're going to just pump their own ad inventory in there. So anytime you watch anything that is ad supported on your smart TV, the company that made this smart TV is probably making some money of it.
They even, I think Vizio does this, and I know Roku does, charge for the button on the remote. So there might be a Netflix button, and those are expensive to get those buttons. And they change, by the way, which is really hard to get used to. If you get a new Roku, the buttons are different because the advertisers, it's an advertisement on the remote control.
And some of these remote controls now have 6 or 8 branded buttons. It's insanity, but it makes them some money.
Yeah.
I think one of the parts of this story that needs to be highlighted is the fact that one of the things Walmart wants is user data. Yanko mentioned advertising. They're doing targeted advertising based on user data. And I would look at other places where Walmart is harvesting and collecting user data. It sounds like they really want to get more deeply into that world.
Walmart's advertising business is called, and I think this is telling, Walmart Connect. Connect your users with their data so that you can sell it to the highest bidder, including, I'm sure, not just advertisers, but data brokers, right?
Yeah. Who knows? But I think there's something that we ought to look into, and by we, I mean Yanko.
Well,
because I'm not going to do that.
It is sort of, if you imagine combining all the data, what people see and watch, with all the data of the stuff that they buy, and then sort of figuring that out for any advertiser who then is going to have spots on Vizio TVs in the future, to know that they're going to reach the exact audience that's going to walk to the Walmart on the next day or next night to buy your products. That's really valuable connection right there, right?
Yeah. And this is yet another one of the million uses for AI. You really watch what people are watching, when they stop watching, when they pause, when they get up, when they whatever, and then fold that into AI and say, what does this mean for what they're going to buy and when they want to buy it? So
you were starting to say, Alex, that Amazon is in the same business, right? I mean, with their subsidized TVs.
I mean, when we think about this, the business size is massive, right? I mean, Amazon made $49 billion on advertising revenue last year alone. So when you think about that in context, spending $2 billion for a connected TV company that will probably, that's, I think, doing quite well as far as revenue goes, you layer your data on top of that, it's a slam dunk. Now you take those TVs and you give them prime real estate in Walmart, all of a sudden, you're making sales and your ad business expands. So this category of commerce advertising, right? Advertising on e-commerce sites, whether that's Amazon or Walmart, and advertising on TVs with connected data, it's huge. It's the fastest growing segment of advertising in the world right now, as Facebook and Google's growth rates have tailed off, even though they're still doing quite well. So if you're Walmart, it would almost be malpractice not to get into this. Now for the consumer, it can be kind of tricky, right? Like if you're not paying a lot of money for those TVs, you're paying for it with something else. But this is definitely an area where we're going to see these efforts ramp up for any e-commerce company.
And I also think it's important to look at, well, first of all, it's still subject to Vizio's board approving the deal, but their market share declined from 2021 when it was 3.1%. In 2020, it was 3.3%. So they have declining market share, and they already have a small market share. I mean, 3% basically. And so who knows what Walmart's going to do with that? Like Alex was saying, you start putting those at the front door when people walk in and really, really selling it. They may grow in market share and turn this actually turn these TVs into a much bigger deal.
You may also wonder what's the status of legislation against data brokers, and in particular, you remember Ron Wyden wrote a letter asking whether the Defense Intelligence Services were buying data on Americans from data brokers, to which the response was yes. Right now, Section 702 of the FISA Act allows that. And there have been some moves in Congress to require a warrant or judicial oversight of some kind, moves which have been opposed by the Biden administration and others. The reauthorization for Section 702 comes up in April. And I'm going to make a prediction that there will be, in fact, no limit placed on intelligence agencies' ability to buy information about you and me from data brokers. And that's one of the reasons this whole thing continues to exist, because law enforcement says this is great data, keep collecting it. So even if you and I decided we don't like this, it's a privacy invasion, or Ron Wyden says, we ought to do something about this, I don't know if we'll ever see any curtailment of this. It's too valuable for law enforcement. And it just means data brokers get to continue completely unrestrained. Watch in April. See if there's April 19th is when it needs to be passed. We'll see if there's there've been moves by various members of Congress. We really ought to do something about this. To which law enforcement quite vigorously says, "No, I don't think so."
We can always count on our government to do nothing in these situations.
It's always
one of its
yeah,
special talents.
safest bet.
If they do anything, what they'll do is they say, well, you know what? We're going to let you keep selling it, but you got to give it to us for free.
Oh, yeah.
That's
There
the
you
deal.
go. So we're saving the taxpayers some money here.
Right. And law and order, exclamation point,
And law and
exclamation
order,
point.
more importantly. All right, let's take a little break. Wonderful panel. Love having smart people on, people smarter than me, and that these guys qualify. Mike Elgin, Yanko Reckers, Alex Kantrowitz. Our show today brought to you by NetSuite. Once your business gets to a certain size, it's like your club. You know, once it gets to the point, I think somebody said, I know my business is too big when I walk around, I don't know the names of people. Like, who are you? You work for me? Oh, interesting. As the business gets bigger, the cracks start to emerge, and there are, I'm afraid, too many manual processes to keep track of. We've all been there. If this is where you are, you should know three numbers: 37,000, 25, and 1. Shall I explain? 37,000 is the number of businesses who have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, HR, and more. All right, what about 25? Well, believe it or not, NetSuite turns 25 this year. 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down costs. What's the one? Well, one, you, because your business is one of a kind. So you get a customized solution for all your KPIs in one efficient system with one single source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, improve margins, everything you need to grow, all in one place. Right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist. It's absolutely free. It's designed to give you consistently excellent performance. And you can get it at netsuite.com/twit. NetSuite, NETSUITE, netsuite.com/twit to get your own KPI checklist. netsuite.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support of This Week in Tech. Bad news for Wyze. Speaking of privacy, this kind of is related maybe to what happened at AT&T. Somebody did something wrong when they were moving from one AWS database to another. Wyze, which sells cameras we've recommended, very inexpensive, nice cameras. Unfortunately, during the move, there was an outage, and when the cameras came back on, many customers reported they were seeing footage of other people's cameras. 13,000 customers being semi-accessible to other accounts. Wyze confirmed over the past weekend that camera thumbnails were accidentally accessible from other users' systems for a brief period. You could see them in the Events tab. They showed images, not full clips, from cameras that were not from a user's own cameras. Initially, they said, it's just a couple of people, but now, in a round of emails sent out to Wyze customers, Wyze said the thumbnail issue affected 13,000 customers.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah. Just over 1,500 of them actually tapped the thumbnails to say, what's going on here? Who is this? I know it's not clear whether you could see video.
And it's not, I don't think there was video. I think it was just
a thumbnail.
Yeah. I think so.
I think that's not.
I'm probably in the minority, but I think that makes it more fun.
What's going on here?
Makes it.
I see an elbow.
Doors.
I see a knee.
Yeah, exactly.
Most taps enlarge the thumbnail, but in some cases, Wyze says the event video could be viewed. So maybe you were one of the lucky people who could click the thumbnail and see what was going on. It was a third-party caching client.
People were in compromising positions, like people were getting ready for work when this outage happened. There was a 23-year-old woman.
It's like home security meets chatterbait or whatever that's called.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And remember we talked earlier about you have to be sufficiently advancing your technology, but also competent. This is a competence issue for this company. If you're a security camera company, you really have one job, right? And it's people use it for watching their pets or monitoring in their house. Your one job is make sure that footage does not end up on somebody else's computer at your fault. And it's a huge failure here.
And it's not the first time, right? So they've had 2 prior issues.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very cheap hardware, but maybe you get what you pay for.
That's what owning one of those Walmart TVs. There's a hidden cost.
Yeah, I mean, they were like $20, and they had a security issue with the first Wyze camera that they couldn't fix. It was in the firmware, and so their fix was...
That's why you don't let Gemini write the programming for your security cameras.
No, do not let Gemini write code. You never know what will happen.
Or crackhead ChatGPT. I'm listening. I'm listening. Listen. That's what that camera was telling people.
Listen.
Stop
Wake
listening.
up, people. Wake up. We're coming for you.
As part of their solution, they're going to have an extra layer of verification, they say, before users are connected to event videos, which means that this is one of the things that these things really cause a small cost on a huge number of people many times going forward, is like there's going to be another step just to watch a video. And so that's probably a good thing, I guess, but that's what always happens with these things. They get every security breach, every little problem like this, they add another layer of annoyance to the user.
And
It's like taking your shoes
Yanko
off in
has
the airport.
issued a correction in our Club Twit Discord.
Yes, very important. And don't Google those things.
He might have said something about Chatterbait. He meant chat roulette. Let's get this clear. Although honestly, that may be a difference without a distinction. But
yeah, Chatterbait is better branding. If
at least you know what you're going to get.
Exactly.
I love it, Yanko. Reddit's IPO may or may not be coming to the New York Stock Exchange sooner or later. They filed on Thursday, and actually the thing that's been most interesting is the documentation they had to file for the IPO, which revealed a lot of interesting information. Among others, we learned that Google is going to pay them $60 million to be able to use content from Reddit in its search, and maybe even for AI training. I think it must be for AI training, right?
It's going to be for AI.
Yeah.
And does that sound cheap to anybody else? That seems like a low number considering how pissed off it's going to make the Reddit community.
Reddit, they made $800 million last year. So getting 65 million in a year is so significant for them. So yeah, I mean, maybe they could have held out for more, but let's say they are able to put together 3 or 4 deals of this magnitude. You're talking about like potentially like a 30-40% revenue increase when they're heading to the public markets. So, the other option would be basically, I mean, they could have just locked the all the information on Reddit down, which is another possibility, or they could have, just made it free and available to everybody to train on. So,
Right.
you're not looking at a lot of positive options there. However, I do think you're right at this point that the Reddit user base will revolt against the management. They hate the management there. They really do. Ever since it stopped allowing third-party apps to use to hook into the API, and I report on this week. But basically, you look at Wall Street Bets this week, and they were talking about how they're all going to short the IPO. And
which was
they listed.
I think one of the adverse possibilities that they mentioned in their 10K filing, right?
They listed them as a risk factor. And Wall Street Bets figure that out. And then so I went on CNBC and I said, listen, they asked me if it's going to be a meme stock. And I was like, listen, this is not going to be a meme stock. I just went on Wall Street Bets this morning and they're saying they're going to short it. And then Wall Street Bets takes the screenshot from that interview.
Oh no, Alex.
To the front page of Wall Street Bets. And we won't talk about all the nasty things they said, but like the first 10 comments were like, yes, we are going to short it. Of course we are. By the way, the CEO apparently made more than $100 million last year.
A lot more, $193 million.
Correct. And guess how much Reddit's loss was last year? 90 million. So basically they're all saying if the CEO takes $100 million in compensation as opposed to 193, then they're going to be profitable. I mean, it's crazy the way that this company is run.
Wow.
And they want to get buy-in from the big moderators and the big users by cutting them into the IPO. But I think that's going to backfire too, because I have a feeling a lot of mods are going to expecting to be approved for this, and they're not going to be approved, and they're going to be really revolting.
Not to mention, Robinhood did it as well for their IPO, and they're down 60% since their IPO after offering this user buy-in. So I expect the same thing to happen with Reddit, maybe worse.
Alex, do you think it's a bad idea for them to go public?
Well, they might not have any option because they raised in 2021, they raised something like $700 million. And a lot of that at a $10 billion valuation. And that was when, that was in the real number go up era, right? And so now like they have all this money, they need to return it in some way. And they're talking about how their valuation might be $5 billion now and not 10. It might even be lower than that. And like, if you're not going to go now, when are you going to go? Like the value of that money just gets less and less. So it might end up being that their IPO just returns like slightly above, that investor money. And then we'll see where the rest goes because the valuation is going to be $5 billion. The raise will be less.
I found your moment of fame on r/Wall Street Bets, by the way. Nice picture. Yeah. LOL. He said he read on Wall Street Bets.
They were actually nicer than I expected.
He's not wrong. They were pretty good. People, I think they weren't talking about you. They were talking about Steve Huffman when they said, let's crush him.
Yeah. They were talking about Steve Huffman.
Yeah.
And some people mistook me for Alexis Ohanian because they're like, Alex,
you kind of look like Alexis a little bit. Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's not me.
So I've interviewed both Steve and Alexis back when they were friends because they're apparently broke up.
He left Alexis completely out of the S1.
He didn't even mention
there.
So the two were roommates for years. There is kind of a connection because they were fans of Dig, which Kevin Rose started when he was at Tech TV. And everybody thought Kevin was going to make $60 million. In fact, he was on the cover of Business Week as the $60 million man. Kevin assures me he did not make anything like that. Dig eventually went under, probably because Alexis and Steve decided to do something similar called Reddit. Had a very similar idea. People would submit headlines and news stories, and then there'd be upvotes and downvotes, and you could read what was going on. I think the thing they did that was better, much better, was the subreddits where you really got communities and you could avoid communities you didn't want to read, like Wall Street Bets, and you could stick with communities you want to read, like Emacs. And I check Reddit several times a day. I love Reddit. But Reddit has the same... Oh, anyway, I was telling the story. So I guess he and Ohanian and his son Huffman sold Reddit to Condé Nast very early on for $10 million. But then it was up and down. They came back. Huffman became the CEO. Alexis was on the board. They were buddies, and then they had a falling out over how to handle Black Lives Matter and death threats in 2020. And I guess they haven't talked to themselves ever since. And on the filing, Huffman, obviously, for some reason, felt like he shouldn't mention that he wasn't the only founder. He was one of two. He wrote the code, though, I'm told. Alexis said he told me that Steve wrote it in Lisp. It was rewritten shortly thereafter.
He did mention, though, that Sam Altman owns 8% of the company.
That was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's my perspective. Sam is important to this story here because I think they should go to Wall Street and be like, we are a social network, but we are an AI company. We have all the data that's necessary to train AI bots and LLMs. And look at this deal we just did with Google. And if you want to invest with us, come along for the ride. Make us part of your portfolio when you're investing in AI. We have the data. We have Sam Altman. Don't make us number one. Let NVIDIA and all that, lead, but put us in the bucket. And that might be what saves this thing. But again, the risk is does the Reddit army revolt? And they might very well.
Well, and this is a problem Twitter has, Reddit has, Facebook has. None of these companies create the content. We create the content. And, in the early days of the internet, remember IMDb what was the CD? Was it CD?
CDDB.
CDDB, yeah. Where users contributed all that content. And then these companies went on and sold to some, big company like Condé Nast. And the platform makers made all the money. But the people who actually made the content got nothing. And we've seen this happen enough times now that I think people are a little bit more suspicious. Reddit exists solely because of the 60,000 unpaid moderators who work every day, labor every day on the site, and the many hundreds of thousands of people who both read and write content on the site.
I think the bigger issue is not going to be that people are not getting paid as much as once that is a public company, there are going to be issues around content moderation. They're going to make tough choices. Like right now, there's still a lot of not safe for work content, obviously, on Reddit. It's sort of age-gated and it's in certain communities. But once they're a public company and they have to watch their stock price and they have to attract major advertisers, and those advertisers may pull out if there's a scandal around that type of content. The choices that they're going to make then are going to be very different from what they've done in the past, I think.
To be fair, we did think that would happen with Condé Nast, and it didn't.
That is true. I think that was always a weird hands-off relationship.
Yeah. And Condé really wasn't that happy as owners of Reddit. They managed to kind of put it off at arm's length. 76 million people visit Reddit website every day.
So here's a fun stat.
Yeah.
Facebook had 410 daily active users when it filed to go public in 2012.
Wow.
Reddit has 72. So, Facebook had 480 something. So Reddit has 410 fewer daily active users Facebook did when it went public, and it was founded a year later. So Facebook's 20 years, Reddit is 19 years.
It's not growing.
It hasn't even reached the amount that Facebook had when it filed to go public more than a decade ago. Now, I know it's unfair to compare Reddit to Facebook, but when you're an advertiser, that's what you're doing. It's coming out of the social media budget. So it'll be a tough sell.
It seems to me that there's nothing you can do with Reddit. You can't really change it without killing it. It's probably closer to the Wikipedia, and they should probably have a similar monetization model. It should be probably supported by donations and other types of revenue. Trying to turn it into Facebook is never going to happen. Mm-hmm. Trying to turn it into anything is not going to happen. Even X, even Twitter, are adding phone calls, and it's going to be a super app, and they're going to have financial transactions, all that kind of stuff. There's nothing you can do with Reddit except let it be Reddit. And so they've got to find a way to monetize it in a better way than making it a public company. That's going to cause problems.
Didn't Jack
the counter argument is
Go ahead, Yanko, please.
I was going to say the counter argument is that on Facebook has way more users, but for brands to target those users on Facebook, they have to sort of trust Facebook that the algorithm is really going to figure out who is into a certain brand based on profile and a bunch of sort of black box stuff that you can't really understand. On Reddit, you have communities, and you can speak to that exact community. And if you're a company that's big enough, there's a community dedicated to you. If you make a big popular product or service, there's a community dedicated to that. So you can target these communities that are interested in your products, brands, services, whatever, with very pinpoint precision. I think that's a big upside for them, even if they're smaller.
But you have 70-something million users as opposed to the other social networks, which have far more. And not only that, so it's a smaller pool. Not only that, you have to tailor make those ads for Reddit. So like I was on the front page and I saw Weight Watchers, for instance, had an ad, and it was in the Am I the Asshole format for like not eating certain foods. And it's like, no,
Smart.
You're not. You can eat whatever.
Smart. That's good.
And it's great advertising. I think it's actually going to be more effective than Facebook. But the question is, for a platform that size and for the work that's necessary to go into the creative work that's necessary to go in and advertise there, are you going to start to get the same level of advertiser interest? It's an open question.
I mean, we all believe that smaller audiences that are dedicated are valuable. That's why we do newsletters, right?
Yeah. The problem with advertising is the advertising market is the advertising market is always fickle. If it's hot
God,
right
tell
now,
me about it. Yeah,
it'll get soft later, and you have these radical ups and downs in your revenue model, which is problematic for a smaller site like this.
I think you got it right. They should say they're an AI play. I mean, really, Google's search results benefit hugely from Reddit. I know a lot of people, myself included, who, if we want advice on a product, we will add site:/reddit.com to a Google search, because it's that there you're going to get some number of people who are, maybe it's small, maybe it's 5, who are absolute fanatics in this tiny little area who will give you the best possible, is extra virgin olive oil recommendations. It's very, very good for that kind of thing. It's a very niche thing, and I think Google will be smart to put more money into it. Heaven forfend they acquire it.
Yeah, don't acquire. Don't even put that out there, Leo.
Yeah, but I think they should say. I think you're right. They should say we are an AI company. We are creating content for AI to ingest because it will make AI better. Is actually not a bad place to be.
They should for their roadshow that they go on before they list public. Should just like go up there and be like ChatGPT, please listen. They should just repeat Sam Altman, 8%, 8%, and then say thank you for coming. We hope to see you on IPO day.
Yeah. By the way, it's not a given that they will go public, right? That's still up in the air. They're preparing a possible IPO.
No, it seems like it will happen.
They're moving ahead.
They're talking about the potential to list as soon as next month, but it's also possible that somebody might come in and acquire them.
Did Reddit suffer from the June rebellion of moderators? I thought it might be the end of the line for Reddit, but there was no good alternative for people to run to.
Yeah.
Had there been an alternative, it could have been. They survived it, I think, yes.
Yeah.
And interestingly, they're now linking it to the AI training, right? They're basically saying we had to do this to block all these companies from accessing our service for free, so now we can charge Google $60-some million a year for this.
Right. It is not tenable when you have 76,000 active, 76 million, right? Active daily users and 60,000 daily moderators. I was going to mention that Jack Dorsey saw this as a problem at Twitter, is why he funded Blue Sky. He really felt like you can't have a centralized company running something like this. There's too much interference to run with governments, with censorship, moderation issues. It's better to let it be diversified. And yet there's a certain value to having a centralized place. Twitter seems to have suffered by I don't know by what. I don't know. By mismanagement? I don't know. By everything that Elon has done from the moment he took over.
My hot take is that Twitter's going to have a comeback. Yeah. I mean, maybe not a revenue comeback.
They didn't die, did they? We thought they'd be dead by now. They didn't die.
The product the product suffered tremendously in the early stages of Elon Musk's ownership, but it has gotten better recently. I think there's some damage that they've done that they cannot undo. For instance, as a user, I hate not being able to tell like whether those verified check marks mean anything and whether it's an actual journalist or an actual public figure telling me something. But the algorithm's gotten better. I will say it's definitely more entertaining than it had been in the past. Like it used to be in the initial days of Elon's rule that it was just ChatGPT influencers and other types of crypto people, but it's much more relevant now. So there is hope. Maybe not a lot.
You know what? I would love to see Twitter survive. I think we've really lost something that was pretty amazing.
And we're having a stock market comeback, right? We have the all-time highs in the S&P 500, and maybe Elon Musk says, "Listen, I've done what I needed to do. I've fixed it, quote unquote." And sends it off to the public market again and just gets out.
It is ironic that the thing that Elon complained most about was bots, and that Twitter is now far worse when it comes to bots than ever before.
I mean, anytime you post a tweet now, you get someone replying you underneath, private parts in bio.
Yeah. It's bizarre. All right, little break. More to come with our fabulous panel, Alex Kantrowitz. Big Technology Podcast. Did you, so many of our best hosts are people like all three of you who've kind of worked for big media and then moved on and done your own thing. And I guess that's true of me too, come to think of it. How long ago did you decide to start Big Technology?
So I started it in May 2023.
I think you were on the show, right? When you started it.
Basically, just as I started. Yeah, that's right. And it has been a joy. So I feel like here's the progression. I needed to be in institutional media to kind of learn how to report and how this machine works and what editors and readers look for in a story. Like I couldn't have done this right off the bat, but I'm so happy to be independent now because it gives me the opportunity, like knowing what I know, to say things I probably wouldn't be able to say if I was a standard news reporter in a newsroom, whether it's BuzzFeed or the Washington Post or whatever it might be. And I also think, like we were talking about before, last break, just the connection that you can make to your readers is so different because in a newsroom, you're just filling in kind of where the newsroom needs coverage. Like at BuzzFeed in the pandemic, they were like, all right, why don't you write about like people getting refunds from Airbnbs and Vrbo, which is an important story for a newsroom, but it gives a reader or a listener no sense as to like what I care about in the world. It's just, okay, I had to do it. Like obviously it wasn't the most pressing issue for me. And like being able to do it now is so great because there is this sense of like, I'll put things out there. People understand my viewpoint. They email me or they, give me feedback on social media. And then we're in constant conversation. And it's allowed me to find a voice as well. So I love doing it.
I think that's a great way of describing it. I feel bad for younger people who don't have the chance to work for institutionalized media because it's going away very rapidly and have to kind of leap in on their own and never really do get that training, those training wheels, which I think are valuable. Absolutely.
Like without BuzzFeed, I wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
And now seeing BuzzFeed News is gone, Vice is gone, and for all their faults, and there were plenty of them, I still enjoyed reading them, and the information that they shared was great. And they were this on-ramp because the thing is, when I broke into journalism, the traditional on-ramp which was that you went to a local paper and then you went to a city paper, then you went state, and then you tried to go national. That was already gone. So the other option was you go to a digital first type of company, like a BuzzFeed. You learn how to report there and then you find your way. And now that's gone. So you're right, Leo. It's quite sad, but I do think that these options like being able to do a podcast or being able to go on Substack for people that really know what they're doing. Like I started doing my stuff part-time as a freelancer before I decided to go full-time. Mm-hmm. And I think there are going to be people that will be breaking in through these channels because digital media today lets anybody who has something insightful to say cut through the noise. Like that stuff will travel. And people that find it traveling, I think will end up making it. So it's just going to be a little bit different than it has been previously.
It's been fun watching you because you really have the passion and the drive I lost years ago to make something great. So it's fun to know. Yanko, you're pretty new at doing this on your own, yeah?
I mean, yeah, relatively yes and no, because I used to freelance for a long time, so that sort of is comparable. Obviously, it's not speaking to an audience directly, but it like the flexibility on the entrepreneurial part of it is sort of the same. I worked for GigaOM.
I remember you from GigaOM. That's where I became aware of you. Yeah. How many years were you at GigaOM?
A long time. It's sort of hard to say because I started for them also as part-time freelancer. Right. But yeah, I started there. Basically, it was my first English language outlet I wrote for.
Yeah. Well, we're so glad to have you and lowpass.cc. I hope it's a great success. And Mike, you're kind of the original on this, starting with becoming a digital nomad.
Right. And also, by the way, Mike's List, which is currently on Substack, I launched it in the year 2000.
Wow.
I believe it's.
Wow, that's a long time.
And that replaced a newsletter that I had in the 90s that I launched in 93.
Oh, look, you got my new glasses on the front page.
That's right. And anyway, so it's been really gratifying. What I haven't done is what Alex is doing, which is full time on the newsletter. And I've really been, I still want to do the columns that I'm doing elsewhere, but I'm thinking of doing like something close to 2 or 3, 4 a day rather than once every other week or something like that. Wow. I've really had a really slow and intermittent, because as you know, I'm super busy having fun and traveling and
it's hard work
drinking wine and stuff
being
like
a gastronomist.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
But Substack is so gratifying, and it's so great that they handle all the annoying parts of publishing a newsletter. I used to do it the hard way, then I did it the semi-hard way on MailChimp. And Substack is great.
I think
because
that's the
it
other
just-
thing that's changed, and it's certainly for Club Twit. It's been a big change. Is the infrastructure that allows individuals to build a business without having an accountant and all that stuff.
Right. Well, that's especially true for you, right? In the world of podcasting, when you started, it was like you were building everything from scratch. You were digging up iron ore to build the computer chassis and stuff just to do the podcast. And nowadays, these cloud services, you're talking about using AI to
so
put show
different.
notes and stuff. Yeah. You go to there's tools like what's it called, Riverside. The show notes and the transcript just happen.
Right.
I mean,
we've actually been, our studio lease goes through the mid 2026. And it's pretty hard lease to get out of. Nobody's going to sublet this. But I have to really say, I can't imagine after that having a studio. It's a huge overhead that really is no longer necessary. We needed it back in the day. We needed the TriCaster and all the different technologies we had to invent, the Skyposaurus and all that stuff. You don't need that anymore. You can do it all easily. Yeah. Anyway, Mike's other business, which he has interestingly managed not to plug, is Gastronomad. Immersive
I'm happy to plug Gastronomad.
travel experiences. I've been on a Gastronomad trip, the amazing Oaxaca adventure. I cannot recommend them more highly. Small group adventures with Mike and his wife Amira, who is an expert chef who makes all the contacts in an area like the Venice Gastronomad, Prosecco Hills, which is coming up, or the Morocco experience. I talked to Julia and Charlie about the El Salvador experience you did. And they were over the moon on this one.
Yeah, that was the first one we ever did. We just did it in January, and it was really, really fantastic. And in fact, we're staying with a couple of friends here, Dylan and Jessica, here in Tasmania, and we met them on another Oaxaca experience.
Wow.
And became friends, and they invited us to come to Australia. But yeah, it's just the best thing ever, and it's becoming more and more valuable to people because tourism is becoming so blown out and over touristic, and people are fed up with tourism. And that is sort of like the Airbnb experiences thing is kind of like everybody's been there, done that kind of thing. What we do is totally the opposite of tourism.
So cool.
We go into people's homes. We our friends are chefs and winemakers, and it's really, really, really unique. And so if anybody wants it, and I would, by the way, we're talking about media. If anybody is interested in this whole concept, I would subscribe to our newsletter, which is free on the site, gastronomad.net. There's a newsletter tab, and just sign up for our newsletter. We'll keep you posted on everything we do, and we'll give you tips and advice and ideas for travel. And so I would recommend that.
Oh, so cool. And it was one of the best trips I've ever taken with you and Amira, and
thank you.
About 4 other couples. It was so amazing, so incredible.
And you can put away the mezcal, Leo. I was impressed.
My favorite moment, and you took the picture, was that Halloween? Was that
Day of the Dead?
It was Day of the Dead, but was it that day?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yes, it was Day of the Dead, when you got your soul purified by a shower of mezcal coming from the mouth of of somebody who purifies souls.
A mezcalito
for a living.
Somebody, it was an amazing and very cold spray of mezcal.
Right. It really has a temperature. So just to explain what was going on, it was a really special day. It was Day of the Dead. The government had banned visits to cemeteries
because of COVID.
And because of COVID, this was, what was it, 2 years ago or something. Mm-hmm. And so we went to one of the most exquisite mezcal places where a friend of ours makes really amazing mezcal. And they purified our soul through a ceremony that involved lots of herbs and mezcal. And then we had a great dinner with huge band. And then we went to a cemetery. How did we do that when it was illegal? Because it was a Zapotec cemetery. The Zapotec people don't consider themselves part of Mexico. They don't accept the authority of Mexican government over them. And they said they were never conquered by the Spanish or the Mexicans. And they didn't close their ceremonies. And we were invited to come to the ceremony in the Zapotec town.
Incredible experience.
That was a one of the greatest experiences of my life personally. And it was really a phenomenal day. But that was, in fact, Day of the Dead.
Yeah. Quite amazing. I can't find the picture of me getting spritzed by mezcal, but probably just as well. But here's some of the cemetery images. I had just gotten a Pixel 6, so I was trying the night images. That's the original, and that's the Pixel 6 fixing it. Pretty amazing experience.
Yeah.
Thanks very much to you and Amira.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had an amazing time. And it's the last time I'll ever get spritzed down the neck with mezcal, I think.
Never say never. Never say never, Leo.
He also whipped me with herbs.
You didn't say that's the last time you're going to get whipped by somebody.
Not the last time I'm going to get whipped with herbs. That might happen again. The food was also very good. Thank you, Mike. Our show today brought to you by Stamps.com. Stamps.com streamlines all your mailing and shipping to turbocharge your operational efficiencies. It's really like, Stamps.com is like having a post office in your pocket. You can stay on top of things even on the go. They've been a partner of ours since 2012. We've been using them before then, but they started advertising on the show in 2012, 12 years ago. You've got to have heard the ads. If you haven't tried them yet, what are you waiting for? We love Stamps.com. You know, if I ever need a postage stamp, I just go to Debbie and I say, print me some stamps. And she fires up Stamps.com and on our regular printer prints up some forever stamps, and I've got them. It's amazing. You can print right on an envelope. You can print package labels. Postage rates keep going up. They just went up again. But you can save with Stamps.com, the best discounts in the industry, up to 89% off the U.S. Postal Service. Oh, and by the way, they do UPS as well. And they have equal discounts there. They automatically tell you your best, cheapest, fastest shipping options. All you need is a computer and a printer. And if you need a package pickup, you just schedule it through your dashboard. I love Stamps.com. You will too. We've got an amazing offer for you. Keep your mailing and shipping moving at the speed of your business with Stamps.com. When you use the promo code TWIT to sign up, it's easy. Go to the website, Stamps.com. Click in the upper right-hand corner. There's a microphone. Click that. Enter TWIT. You'll get a 4-week trial. You'll get free postage, a free digital scale, and no long-term commitments or contracts. It's really, there's no reason not to do it. Go to Stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the page, enter the code TWIT, TWIT. I guess it's only fair since you took the picture, Mike.
Yeah, it's in the Google Photos album from the experience. Yeah,
that's right. That's where it is. Here, I'll pull it up for you.
And this is why your soul is pure.
You got it right down the neck, kids.
Yeah.
By the way, my wife, and Lisa will never actually forget this, thinks I'm an idiot for agreeing to that. She said, I'm good. And that's why her soul is so impure.
Leo, did you get to drink any of that mezcal?
Oh,
good Lord. Mike, did we get to drink any mezcal?
Yeah, pretty much at least 2 or 3 times a day. We did some mezcal tasting. We did lots of stuff.
You couldn't go anywhere. They push it on you because Oaxaca's the land of mezcal. And you can't.
It's basically like tea in the Middle East. You sit down, you come over to somebody's house, and you're going to get mezcal.
Mezcal?
Yeah.
My favorite thing, though, wasn't the mezcal. It was the pulque, the precursor to mezcal, which is they ferment fruit. I don't know if it's a precursor. They ferment
agave. It's the same stuff they make mezcal
it is
out
the precursor.
of, but they ferment it rather than distill. Exactly. And that's, pulque is, 3,000-4,000 years old. Mezcal is about 300 years old. And to answer your question, Alex, sometimes they do put an agave larva, which we call a worm in mezcal, but there's 100 other things they put in it as well, including scorpions in extreme cases. No. But most of the time,
that's all right.
It doesn't have any of that stuff. Yeah, it doesn't have any of that stuff. The fact of mezcal that makes it so interesting is that there are literally like 50,000 different varieties based on the different variations of methodology, what you add to it, how you age it, how you cook it, all that kind of stuff. So it's a really amazing world. It's an amazing world to explore, and we certainly did.
Oh, it was so much fun. We went to several mezcal distilleries. In fact, the place I got squirted also made mezcal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was the old way of doing it. It was really fascinating, really interesting.
Yeah.
We had a great week this week on Twit. In fact, it was so good we decided to make a highlight reel for those of you who might have missed any of the fun. Watch. Oh, wait a minute. You were talking about volumetric lighting.
Smoke.
I have
the smoker alarms. Here we go.
I have the smoke machine.
From the dead forward shot, it looks like you're really, really angry.
Hey, Ayana!
Previously on Twit. Mac Break Weekly.
What about that thing Mark Zuckerberg said about the Meta Quest being the best VR helmet out there, period?
Trust me, he's really thrilled that Apple is in this market. It lets him sell people on the Quest 3 as a much more affordable alternative to the Vision Pro. It validates him in so many ways.
Coming up on Hands on Windows, we're going to take a look at AI PCs. These are brand new Windows computers that have an NPU built in and can hardware accelerate AI tasks.
Security Now.
This has got to be the most underreported event that I can remember. The whole internet was at risk for the last couple months.
What?
And a group of researchers silently fixed it.
What?
Windows Weekly.
OpenAI announced something called Sora. You see this thing?
Holy cow, yeah. And these are all from text prompts. That's what's amazing.
People say things and they sound like exaggerations, People will talk, this is as big as the internet. I think this is bigger
This one
than all
is.
of that
This
stuff.
one is. It's
crazy.
biggest.
This Week in Google.
Did you guys experience the ChatGPT hallucination
I
period
didn't. I mustn't
yesterday?
have used it last night at the right times. Here's a couple of examples.
Of note, Kata type requires an bita lampara paja punto.
Let me encyclopedize me. See?
Smiley face emoji.
The thing is, to ChatGPT, this makes just as much sense
As anything else.
because
Yeah.
it knows
That's true.
sense.
Twit. Bring your brain. We'll do the rest.
Good Thorpe and Viaton.
Good Thorpe and Viaton
Good
to
Thorpe.
you too, Leo.
I want more sign-off specifically in that style.
By the way, that was Molly White, the creator of Web3 is Going Just Great, who was our guest on This Week in Google last Wednesday. She is wonderful, and we will have her back. You might have heard what Steve said on Security Now. You should listen to the episode from Tuesday. He was referring to, get this, a 24-year-old, it's been around for 24 years, security vulnerability called KeyTrap, which was such a trivial, simple bug. A single malicious packet could literally stall an entire DNS server. Enough packets, you could have had bad guys discovered this, taken the entire internet down. Fortunately, it's been patched, but it was a fundamental design flaw in the DNS system. And this team from Germany, Athene, discovered it. They called it KeyTrap. They gave it a CVE and were able to get it fixed. So, but 34% of the DNS servers in North America alone use DNSSEC. That means that 1/3 of all the servers were vulnerable. There was apparently nobody had discovered it until Athene discovered it, or Athene, and a bullet dodged, as Steve said. Quite the story.
Wonder what else is lurking out there that we haven't discovered
God,
yet.
24 years. Exactly. We're hanging by a thread, folks. This whole thing could go at any moment. Speaking of bugs, Microsoft has fixed the browser. Can I put this in air quotes? Bug that Edge had that was stealing Chrome tabs and data for months. If you had Edge running, it would just, as a convenience to you, import all of your Chrome tabs and data. People have been complaining about this for months on Reddit and elsewhere. Microsoft finally acknowledged, oh, yeah, sorry. So they've turned that feature off. Thank goodness.
Yeah, that's yeah.
As they were expanding their network, it was suddenly what was it? A function that malfunctioned?
These things happen. Mistakes happen, as you know. Speaking of mistakes, I don't know if it's willful, a mistake, or Mike Gallagher, a member of Congress, is wrong. But according to the Wall Street Journal, Elon Musk could be withholding satellite internet in Taiwan. The Starshield service, which is a service that SpaceX has offered the Department of Defense for DoD use, designed to provide secure satellite communications and other services for national security customers. Apparently doesn't work in Taiwan. At least that's according to Mike Gallagher, who is a Republican congressman from Wisconsin. Wrote a letter to Elon saying, hey, what gives here? It's inactive near and in Taiwan. Now, let's remember that Elon has business with mainland China, which has always said Taiwan is not separate from China. I think something like 22% of Tesla's revenue comes from China. I guess the implication is that Elon, in his sensitivity to Chinese feelings, has decided not to provide.
Or I mean, we don't know for sure. I mean, it's an election year, and oftentimes members of Congress will come up with something that plays well with the base, that has the right amount of xenophobia and fear-mongering, and turn out later to be something other than what they claimed. Still, it's also, this is the big fear that we had with Elon Musk when he was in the process of acquiring Twitter, which is that, in order to sell Teslas in China, will he censor for the Chinese Communist Party? Will he do this? Will he do that? And that's one of the problems with somebody with as much power as Elon Musk, who has financial interests in China. To what extent will he help them, prevent Taiwanese, for example, from getting internet service? We don't know yet. But I would take this with a grain of salt until we know for sure what's happening exactly. But this is a fear with Elon Musk. He's got too much power and too many financial interests in China. And by the way, so does Apple.
Don't we think that this is a problem for the U.S. government also, that it's relied on such an important piece of infrastructure to be built by the private sector? Not, by the way, it's not the first time we're seeing this. Like, we also have this in Ukraine, where basically the United States and the European coalition is effectively beholden to Elon to continue providing internet access to the Ukrainian army, and he's turned it off at points. So this is one of the things that if you're a government, you run, you don't walk, to build on your own. But yet, instead of doing that, we have Mike Gallagher writing letters about Elon Musk. We need to figure out a way to get this thing to not be dependent on one person.
Yeah, and it's not just internet connectivity with I mean, there are many governments now that have space programs, and the first thing you do if you have a space program is satellites. Literally 50% of the satellites orbiting the Earth right now are owned by
Elon's.
SpaceX.
Yeah. Wow.
Crazy.
Wow. The FTC, is getting a lot of hits for various things they're up to. I think this was one we could all agree is deserved. They have cracked down on H&R Block for deleting tax data when users want to downgrade. It's very easy to upgrade from their free tax service to a paid service. It's seamless. But the FTC says in an administrative complaint it issued Friday, that H&R Block designed its online products to present an obstacle course of tedious challenges to consumers, pressuring them into overpaying for their products.
It's called dark patterns. Learn the language, FTC.
And you know what? Anybody who's ever used H&R Block, as I have, or I use TurboTax, same thing. They're full of dark patterns. It's free. And then you get to, but you want to file them. Oh, well, that'll cost you $89. It's full of that stuff. And here, as we're getting close to tax season.
I just want to give a standing ovation to the FTC here. FTC,
yay.
I've been critical of you at times, but this one, you deserve a standing ovation.
Right on.
Because these tax companies are liars. And it just they're getting away with it without any recourse. And to have the FTC take the stand and say, no, you can't promise free tax prep to people if you're not giving them free tax prep.
Right.
This is exactly what the agency was created for.
This is what they're supposed to do.
So standing ovation, Lena Khan. You don't get it all right, but this one certainly did.
I will defend Lena Khan to the death. I think she's the best FTC chairman we've had in long time, in my memory for sure. And this is not something we didn't know about for years. ProPublica 5 years ago did an investigation that found H&R Block was among several other tax prep services that kept Google from showing the free offerings and search results. Well, you can't search for those.
I mean, TurboTax also, like they have such a sneaky thing where they will add like an extra $40 to your tax price.
Oh, you wanted to file state returns?
Oh my God. I've done it a few times where like I finished and I was like, all right, I had one price the whole time. I signed up and next thing I know, it's like, almost double. And then you write to them and then you're like, they're like, sorry, we'll refund because it gives you nothing. But I don't even know where I pay attention when I'm on the internet.
Yeah, I use TurboTax to do my mom's taxes. She's 91, and they're pretty straightforward. And I get caught every time. I almost always just say, take my $89. Right.
Yeah,
it's fine. They get me every single time. I want to end on a happy note, so I will be very happy to report that the entire knowledge of human civilization is now safely backed up on the lunar surface. You may have been following the mission of this Intuitive Machines IM-1 lunar lander. The first time we've landed on the moon since Apollo. You may remember that it was actually quite a story about the landing. Somebody forgot to flip a switch before takeoff that would turn on these special cameras that were designed to help the lander land on the moon. And as a result, it was coming in blind. Let me see if I can find this because this was such a great software fix. It turned out that there was a scientific package already on the lander with LiDAR and some other stuff available to it. So they scrambled at Intuitive Machines and got that package working. And in fact, were able to touch down on the moon. The laser rangefinder on the lander were not working properly because somebody forgot to turn it on. So controllers uploaded a software patch to on the lander to use in their place to use a NASA Doppler LiDAR payroll. It was originally going to be a technology demonstration to help it land. And it did, except it tripped. It missed a boulder, apparently, and one of the legs of the lander hit the boulder, and the lander landed on its side, which is why they've had a little trouble communicating. But it is communicating, and many of the payroll packages will work. The landing was the first on the moon by a privately developed spacecraft, the first soft landing on the moon by any American spacecraft since 1972. It was a NASA commissioned project, though, so it was a NASA payload. The mission carried 6 NASA payloads through the Commercial Lunar Payload Services Program. But also on there were some non-NASA payloads. Columbia Sportswear had some jackets on there. They say to test as an installation for a propellant tank. But really, I think it was an ad for Columbia Sportswear. The International Lunar Observatory Association put 2 astronomical cameras up there. Jeff Kuntz provided an artwork called Moon Phases. That's the part that landed face down, by the way. Well, okay, so it's there, but no one was going to be able to see it anyway, right? So now it's face down. But the most by the way, there was another one, the Eagle Cam, built by students at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Eagle Cam was designed to be ejected from the lander during its descent and then reaching the surface ahead of the lander so that they could get pictures of it landing. Did that work, John? Do we know?
It didn't eject it.
It didn't eject, so no pictures. Too bad, because we'd like to see the sideways thing. But the thing that I got my attention, and this is written by Nova Spivak, who was with the Arch Mission Foundation. They sent up a lunar library made of thin sheets of nickel called nanofiche that are practically indestructible and can withstand the harsh conditions of space. What's on those thin sheets of nickel? A backup of
Wikipedia.
The Wikipedia. You're right. A backup of human knowledge that can now endure untouched on the moon for eternity, which might beg the question, why?
And how do we edit it when things change?
Right. So on there, the Wikipedia, you got it, 6 million articles, the English language Wikipedia. Project Gutenberg, 70,000 public domain ebooks. It's all the good stuff, the Dickens stuff, Robert Louis Stevenson. It's all public domain novels and books.
Plus David Copperfield's tricks.
So this is a little strange. David Copperfield's magic secrets. The secrets to all his greatest illusions, including how he will make the moon disappear in the near future. And I'm thinking, first of all...
Don't tell the moon.
Yeah, right, exactly.
We're going to make you disappear. Please, don't tell anybody. He must have paid for this, right? He is a billionaire. He's made a lot of money. He's not... I would say he's arguably not the best magician in the world. I would have much rather known how Penn and Teller did their tricks.
Yep.
But he must have paid them some money for this. It's just publicity because, except that I was thinking, what if distant future, an intelligent species comes and they land on the moon and they find this thing and they realize there's something on there and they open it up and they see David Copperfield's magic secrets. What are they going to think? Is it like, he must have been the leader of the civilization,
right? And why was he sawing people in half? And what's going on?
What the hell? Long Now Foundation's 7,000 the Rosetta Project of 7,000 human languages. Selections from the Internet Archives collection, the SETI Institute's Earthling Project with 10,000 vocal submissions representing Humanity United.
Why do they have to send this to the moon?
I don't know. The Arch Mission Primer, which teaches 1 million concepts with images and words in 5 languages. I think that maybe they're thinking, if it all goes to hell on the Earth, at least it will all be up on there on the moon. But then the only way you'd get
That's reassuring.
Is to have enough technology to go back and get it. By which time all of this is useless.
That's basically, that's kind of sort of what happened in Space Odyssey, where there was a monolith buried on the moon. It was the technology to go find it and dig it up and then expose it to sunlight that triggered much of what happened in the movie, right? So it's kind of sort of like
a radio message to Jupiter. And then when you get to Jupiter, you find out all these worlds except one are yours, right? Like, don't go near us.
Except Europa.
Except Europa.
The aliens will get to the moon. And they'll be like, wow, they messed that planet up real good.
No wonder.
No
wonder
like, they left us.
No wonder there's just a smoldering boulder where the Earth used to be.
They couldn't even land this rover right. What happened? I guess they were drinking way too much mezcal before they sent it up.
Sideways rover lying there. Help me, help me. Oh my God, the entire civilization's records. This is the third time they've tried to do this, by the way. They failed 2 times before.
Right.
Here's what Nova Spivak writes. We have safeguarded our cultural heritage far beyond Earth, ensuring that no matter what the future holds, our history, knowledge, and accomplishments and our best magic tricks will persist untarnished on the moon for eons to come.
These people don't take themselves too seriously at all.
And it's not that far. It's not that far removed from the Earth. It's kind of right there. But the big note. So in keeping with
you
your
say it's right there, but it took us a
note.
long time to get there. I mean, it wasn't the easiest.
But it's in the universe scale.
Right.
The Earth and the Moon are essentially touching. But the good news is that we're actually at the cusp of a new era of space exploration, which is really, really exciting. There was a great article in the Atlantic from Marina Koren called "Apollo Sequel Will Be a Gold Rush." And I don't know if anybody's seen the TV series For All Mankind, but it's starting to look like a For All Mankind kind of a thing. So just briefly, For All Mankind is a alternative history where the Soviets beat the Americans to the moon. The space race didn't end with moon exploration, but actually heated up and a lot more money was plowed into it. And then they go into the future, into Mars exploration and everything else. We're about to, and it was all public-private, a lot of public-private stuff. Some of the most advanced technology was private companies. There's an Elon Musk-like character at some point who shows up with his own space program. And so this is a great series, but over the next 5 years, 10 years, it's going to look a lot more like this series where there's private companies, lots of countries are going to be having space programs of their own. A lot of moon exploration, probably a permanent presence by the United States on the moon, and probably a couple of other countries. The U.S. is getting serious about Mars. And so it's really an exciting, I think it's going to be an exciting decade for space enthusiasts.
And also there's been this argument made that the moon is sort of a pit stop on the way to the Mars, right? Where you could like maybe stop and recharge or whatever. So you could also see it the other way around. If anybody ever comes to visit us, maybe they're going to stop on the moon first. They're going to look at this rover and they're going to read all this stuff, and then they're going to
then turn around and go back.
Maybe change their travel a little bit, find a way around this. Who knows?
We figured out how to play the nickel microfiche, and here is what it says: never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna turn around. And
that's all it is. It's just one video.
It's just Rick Astley over.
You see this guy who never saws them in half?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, look, and it's one of the reasons we launched a show called This Week in Space, because I felt the same way, Mike, that we are on the precipice of something very exciting. You and I grew up watching, space exploration. The last time we landed on the moon, I was 16 years old. It's been a while. Yeah. And so it's fun to see it happen again. I don't know. The same arguments are going to pop up that popped up in the 60s, which is, well, so what? Why? We've got real problems here at home. Why are we spending billions to do this? And I guess it's human nature that we want to explore. And it's a small percentage of our overall expenditure.
Well, that was actually one of the things that was interesting about the show For All Mankind, and which I think is true, and I think it's actually been demonstrated by the Apollo program, which is that, for every dollar you spend in space exploration, you tend to get, $30 back in economic value in terms of the invention, stuff like that. In the series, actually, the Soviet Union never falls because their space exploration funds their country to the point where they don't have an economic collapse. So I don't know.
Yeah, how did that work out?
Yeah. So it's, I tend to think that if you want to justify it in terms of dollars and cents, you can. I think it's pretty easy to do that.
Well, I don't know if that's the case.
It's also cool. Like we definitely should have something in our budget for like cool stuff.
Yeah, it's cool.
Like municipalities do fireworks. Federal government should do space exploration.
It's like fireworks.
It's just like,
you're right.
Cool budget.
It just makes you feel good. It's less than the entire amount of money we spend on pizzas every year in this country. So it's, it's like that.
That pizza money is money well spent. So
certainly nobody's complained about that.
I'm contributing to a large percentage of that budget.
Well, if your pizza's here, it's good because we're about to wrap this sucker up. Thank you, Alex, for being here. Alex Kantrowitz, host of the Big Technology Podcast, the Big Technology Newsletter at bigtechnology.com, the author of Always Day One. Boy, the guests you have on your show, spectacular. I will definitely be listening to the NVIDIA show.
Thank you. Yeah, that's coming up Wednesday. Yeah. We definitely, I'm very stoked about our lineup. We have, NVIDIA show coming up, and then Ryan Peterson from Flexport's coming on. We have, lots of good stuff.
Nice. All at bigtechnology.com. Always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you.
Great being on. Leo, great talking with you. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to have to listen to that Den's interview. I was a big fan of Foursquare.
Yeah, he has this.
I'll be curious what he's up to.
He has this very cool new app that he's working on called Bbot. And basically it's he thinks audio is the next audio augmented reality platform. So the co-founder and former...
Sorry, I started playing the podcast. Yeah. I'll wait till I get home. I'm sorry.
It's location. I love that, Leo, by the way. That's what we want, by the way. Thank you for that.
I can't wait to hear it.
Bbot is location-aware audio notifications. So you could be walking through a city listening to a podcast.
I love that.
And then for like 10 seconds, Bbot will come in and be like, hey, by the way, there's an event going on, to your right, like tomorrow night.
Lisa and I did that in Rome. We downloaded, or I guess it was on our phone, it was an app that when you walked by something would say, oh, you see that? And it would tell you what it was. And then you kept walking, it would get silent, and then you keep walking. And every once in a while it'd pop up, oh, you know that thing on your right? That's 1,000 years old or whatever. It was better than having a guide. It was wonderful. So I'm with him.
That stuff is so cool.
Interesting. Yeah.
And imagine it tells you like, oh, the restaurant you walk by, the chef special is, ABC or something like that. And so just have this contextually aware buddy with you as you go through cities. I think it's awesome.
I think that's what my new space glasses are going to do.
Absolutely.
I can't wait. It's your fault, Mike. I can't believe I bought those. What an idiot.
You're welcome.
I held up on the Meta Ray-Bans, and I ended up getting the Brilliant Labs frames. And I got the geekiest ones, too. What's the thing on the back? Is that a speaker?
I think those are batteries or something. I don't know what those are. Who knows?
I'm wearing them to work the minute they come. Mike's List, now for 22 years. Amazing.
24 years.
24 years.
And yes. And thank you all for subscribing to my newsletter if you want to check it out. Also, one quick plug, check out hellochatterbox.com. I don't want to belabor the point, but it's an awesome AI education. We talk a lot about AI, and now they're teaching students prompt engineering as well as everything else.
This is Mike's son, Kevin, who is so brilliant and came up with a wonderful thing for schools or even for parents at home who want to help their kids understand technology, have some fun building a talking computer and programming it so that you understand, as we get into this AI world, having a kid know the difference between an AI and a human in a box is very important. And this is a great way to give them that kind of literacy, not just literacy in coding, but AI literacy. So hello,
and it's the only smart speaker that's legal in school that's COPA compliant. So if you're an educator, this is the only one you can use, and I would recommend it highly.
Very nice. If you have a Raspberry Pi, you can get everything else, and if you don't, they also sell a Raspberry Pi in a version as well. HelloChatterbox.com. Always like to give Kevin that plug. I think that's a really great thing.
Thank you.
And don't forget gastronomad.net and go on one of these wonderful trips that Mike and Amira put together. They are incredible. What's the next one?
The next one is Mexico City in about 3 weeks or so.
Fun.
And that's going to be super fun.
Fun. Yanko Retgers, his new newsletter, lowpass.cc. And you were very kind to put a little special deal in our Club Twit Discord. Thank you for doing that, Yanko.
Sure thing. We want to check it out.
Yeah.
So my newsletter is all about AR, VR streaming every week. I have a free and a paid tier. And if people want to check out the paid tier for free for a month, the coupon is in the...
Very nice. Filtering the future. We also can see you on Fast Company and elsewhere. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Always happy to be here.
Thank you, Yanko. Thank you to all of you who joined us, especially our Club Twit members who make this show possible. If you're not a member, twit.tv/clubtwit, please join the fun, join the community, support what we're doing. This show is available still for free, ad-supported. Yeah, we still got some advertisers. Thank you to all of our advertisers. You can get a copy at twit.tv after the fact. You can also go to YouTube. There's a full-time YouTube channel dedicated to This Week in Tech, the video of it. You can subscribe in your favorite podcast client. Just search for Twit. All of our shows are available that way. You can even watch us do it live. We stream the show while we're doing it, like right now, at YouTube, youtube.com/Twit. We do that for all of our shows. And if you were in the club, of course, you can watch the live stream before and after the show as well. Thanks for being here. Thanks to Benito Gonzalez, our producer, who does such a great job, chimes in from time to time. You're glad you're not working at Twitch anymore, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Thanks to John Jammerby Slanina, our studio manager, who got the smoke machine working, and then it broke. That was it. That was his last act.
We've got a Burke.
Oh, Burke's fixing it?
Well, not yet.
We'll see. That's Burke McQuinn. He's our repair monkey. What do we call him? What's his official title?
Studio engineer.
Thank you. Much nicer than repair monkey. But he is very good at fixing things. Thanks to all of you for being here. Oh, he says now it may not be fixable. Well, how are we going to have fog in the studio if you don't fix the smoke machine? It was fun while it lasted, I guess. Yeah, we got it for the New Year's Eve shows. But I think a little volumetric lighting is good on every podcast. We do Twit every Sunday from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time. That's 5 to 8 Eastern. God knows what it is in Australia. Something like 9 a.m. Australia time, 2200 UTC. You could do the math. So watch us live if you want on YouTube or get the show after the fact. Either way, we're glad you were here. We hope we'll see you next time. And as I have been saying now for 19 years, be 19 years in April. Holy cow. Another twit is in the can. Bye-bye. What, not 19 years?
I was really hoping for Vietnam.
Oh, good. Okay, we'll do one more time. And as we've been saying for 19 years, hard to believe, since 2005 when we started this thing, good Thorpe and Viet Hon.
This is amazing.